Welcome to Apex Legends Master Circuit Wildcards number 4 for North America. My name is Matrim, and I am joined by Blue. We ran through all the European action earlier, and it was a blast. But now it's time to get a little wild because, you know, North America always brings it.
Absolutely the case. We got a new set of teams, and they're all going to be hailing from North America. Of course, very excited to be getting into it. Otherwise, things are going to be exactly the same as just a few hours ago. I think we're going to run through everything once again, though, just to be safe for the folks that may just be tuning in.
Yeah, if this is your first time coming into this one, well, the wildcards qualifiers are pretty simple. We just run trios, which is the tried and true Apex Legends way of doing things. Up to 20 teams, depending on signups, can be competing in it, and we're going to be doing 5 games today.
Absolutely the case. We'll take a look at how our point structure is going to work. Pretty straightforward if you've watched an Apex tournament before, but if you haven't, it's based, of course, on placements as well as kills. You can earn up to 12 points if you finish in first place at the end of the game, trailing down to, obviously, 0 points if you end up all the way in the back of the pack, but you can also boost your score as you get 1 point for each elimination. So as we saw in our last matchup, you can make big gains very quickly if you combine a high placement with a high number of kills.
And respect and banter on social media is all fine and good, but let's not forget that there's also some money on the line. $600 for first, $300 for second, $150 for third and fourth, and 5th through 10th also get a seat in the seasonal final, which will be coming up in just a few weeks for a chance at even more money.
Going to be the case. Should be a fun time as we've got our teams up in front of us now. Let's run through it as we've got the full lobby. It looks like this time around. Fake Preds, BNB, Ape next. It's just whatever that emoji is. Parallel, Axolotl, Doja, Chickens, CCS, Outsiders, Aim Assist, MB, High Tribe, OG, Milk Bros, B1, Chi Collectors, Nadays Rollers, Theater 3, NTC, and MoFam are your squads for today's tournament. Like we said, it is teams that for the most part we have not really seen before, so we're going to have to wait till our first game to dive a little bit deeper into what exactly these squads bring to the table, but that is part of the fun. We don't know what to expect. We don't know where they're going to drop. It's going to be a good time.
Well, we've got MoFam, but if you also feel like you want to be part of the fam, don't forget the fact that you can compete at compete.playstation.com. Signups are available. And sure, we've got Apex that's going to be running through a ton of stuff, but we also have a lot of other games. Rainbow Six is going to be coming up here pretty soon. We've got 2 fighting games that are on the horizon with Dragon Ball FighterZ as well as Street Fighter, so make sure you jump into any of the action where it's at, because you know that we're trying to get as much love and respect behind PlayStation esports as we can, so that more people can get compete. And even if you don't want to compete, and you know friends that do, tell them. Tune in. Make sure to support, because as this grows, there's so much opportunity.
Absolutely the case. So with all that out of the way, it is time to get ourselves ready, I believe, for our first drop of the day. Just like we had over in Europe, all 5 of our maps today are going to be played on Storm Point. It is the newest addition into the competitive map rotation. We've seen it slowly working its way in over the past year or so, so it is going to be a bit of a challenge for our teams, but it is, of course, a fun map. Lots of different biomes as well as just overall map setups. You've got very open areas, very closed-off areas with a lot of building clutter and things like that, so lots of variety in terms of where you can drop yourself off and play the game out. That also means we get a lot of circle variety in terms of where we end up at the end of the game too.
I mean, we got verticality that's going to be coming in. It's a slow recess all the way from the top down to the bottom. It's just a decline all the way. But let's also not forget about gravity wells, the way you can jump around, get places really, really fast. We got cars that you can pick up and take. We've got just the normal rotation strategies as well. It is going to be a blast because, again, while Europe, let's be honest, gets a little bit more technical with the rotations here and there, we've got a maxed out lobby over here in North America, and they are already frag heavy, so you know it's going to be off to a very fast kickoff.
Yeah, we should expect things to get a little bit more chaotic, I think, going into this first drop compared to Europe, because the lobby is going to be filled up a little bit more. So expect maybe a little bit of contention right off the bat this time around compared to our previous matchups where we obviously had a little bit more room for our teams to spread out. Not going to be so much the case here this time as we get ready for our first drop, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get ready to head into it on Storm Point, and we'll take a look, of course, at the Legend Selects in just a second as well to see if we're going to have any surprises for our squad picks.
Yeah, Europe was pretty just basic. We had an Octane here and there, and I think that we saw like Gibby show up in a couple, but nothing really outside of the realm of what we would consider normal for the strong legend selections inside of Apex. Let's see if we've got any comfort picks or surprise picks coming out there. Looks like MoFam does hover an Octane.
We got a Caustic, yeah.
Caustic, yeah.
Yeah, down there for Rip Curl and Theater 3, so expect to see them probably taking early position in the circle to try to play around that. Other than that, though, looks like we get a Newcastle there on the bottom right for MoFam. A few of them, actually, because we have one on It's Just as well. So we're going to see a little bit of playing around with him as well. Just a good capability to bail teammates out if they end up in a bit of a bad scenario.
Just means the fact that we're going to get some more variations, some more fun, and some more chaos as we're going to be moving into this one. All right. We've got the path going, and it's going to be going around Shipfall and ending up in between High Point and the Wall to the north. Eyes are all drawn to Hot Drops because this is not your tried and true where we've had a whole bunch of scrims to get everything worked out. This is Apex Legends in the raw, so Lord only knows where people are going to be landing.
Yep, definitely the case. We want to pay very close attention to this first drop for the reasons you just mentioned here. This is not a pre-scrimmed lobby as you would generally get in the pro divisions, where sort of things like landing zones and overall POI control would have been decided for the most part beforehand. This is going to be a little bit more chaotic here, so we'll have to see if there's going to be mutual respect handed out towards anyone, and more importantly, if anybody is going to challenge the drops. Looks like it's dispersing itself without too much conflict, though, at the moment here. Everybody just kind of finding an open POI and taking control of it here. Not necessarily looking like we're going to get any open contestation. Could see some interesting stuff happening over here on the northeast part of the map, though. We've got a lot of squads within close proximity to each other.
Yeah, now with the way the circle, it has been kind of leaning into this, like, northwestern side, and that's not to be too surprising whenever we look at it all together. With the drops and the way we've got the lineup, we didn't see a lot of this in Europe, but more often than not, you see people try to set up in those choke points and start really trying to get early kills on this map. With, again, a very heavy lean into everybody playing the edges of the map. This is a safety play. Nobody knows where everybody's going to drop, so everybody just drops to the edge of the map so that way you don't have anybody behind you, and you know you can work your way through it. Problem is, that means that you got a ton of friends around you when you land.
Yeah, over here by down, we are going to see a little bit of action kicking off early on as they land just a little bit too close to each other, so that's going to leave Apex as our first team to be knocked out, unfortunately. Just not ready to contend against that pressure coming in from B&B, so they're able to wipe them out pretty quickly here, get all the loot that comes along with it from this POI over in the northwest part of the map. We are seeing a rotation from one squad just to the south of them head towards that. If you look at the top left part of the map, you can see them. They're that kind of blood orange/red color with Carnage on top of it, so they're probably going to try to wrap around this. A little late for a third party realistically, but we'll have to wait and see what type of position they're able to take up.
Yep, that was our early skirmish off the get-go, but we've got Dojo over here doing some scouting around the western areas. So now as we're getting an idea on the map and how it's going to line up with everything, it's pretty calm. We do have Regretful and his team that did move into Cascade Falls, as well as, I believe, Jet Life that moved into the checkpoint area. Other than that, it's still a lot of edge play, which means the fact that choke points, again, we were talking about it a second ago, could be a factor for a lot of this. But also, early rotation could be a big benefit as we are now looking over to the west, and it's a pretty big party over here. We've got Carnage and his team hanging out. Well, Darth Chicken off in the distance. That's, I don't think, going to be involved inside of this fight, but I believe that we have two teams stacked up with the third eyeing and maybe joining the fight.
Team in the back here does not want the engagement. Possibility of a Valkyrie coming up, and never mind, they got a car. So a little bit of an easier way to get out of this situation. You say easy, but at the same time, they are getting peppered down pretty heavily. Remember, that damage gets spread amongst everybody in the vehicle when shots land onto it. So they were already at crack shields there. Looks like they just managed to scavenge away, though, thankfully, with no one else going down as B&B attempted to grapple onto that, but just couldn't get a hold, unfortunately.
I thought Carnage was off in the distance. He was grabbing themselves an escape vector, so they do manage to pick that one up. But TGS is also playing to the north over there, but I think that Carnage is also spotted out, so should wrap all the way around them and be safe. B&B, though, finally finds themselves in a point where they can get their feet underneath of them, relax, and breathe for a moment, figure out what's going to be going on. Outsiders, though, outside of the map in the water, so it looks like they should be making their path into landfall, and it's pretty free on the opposite side of the wall. There is a team, but already rotating away from it.
Meanwhile, on the inside of, I believe this is going to be Command Center over here, we're going to see Fake Preds getting themselves into the midst of another engagement. Trying to make a push onto it, but obviously a little bit of a tepid duel. We had seen quite a few teams land around this area, and potentially we're going to have to rotate through it, so not too much of a surprise to see the Fake Preds getting jumped on the inside of here. Very much just a poking fight, though. No one really full committing at this early point in the game, as we still have a lot of map to play through, so absolutely no one being forced into a fight this early on that they do not want to take. Seems like the Fake Preds, though, with that team falling back, they're going to be clear to try and rotate through this one. Maybe either looking for revenge onto that team or just obviously a better rotation route for themselves.
Yeah, whenever we're looking at this, it's a quick mobilization to the edge of the zone where we see a couple of our teams lined up, specifically one that we're looking at right now with Fake Preds. They are still continuing their hunt after Sabroso, but I don't know if they're going to spot them just yet. You can see in the distance, does actually look like they have spotted it all out, so going to continue again, and full on gusto, just going to jump straight on into this one, and Fake Preds have some goals, and that goal is KP.
Their opponents are on the run still, however, all three of them making it down the cliffside. Fake Breads, of course, spotting this one. At the moment, keeping up the chase, but they may have to give it up sooner rather than later here as they've routed through a lot of the map. The possibility of them potentially running into a third party is going to grow the further they try to take this fight, especially with shots now being exchanged between both of those parties. There is a bit of a hidden time limit on this one for the Fake Preds, but that's going to be the initiation right there. The crack going on to the Loba, no reason for them to hold back now as they've got the outright advantage, and the Loba more than likely stuck in a corner. Giving her a little bit of time, though, you probably saw it in the corner of your eye. She sneaks the bat off, so she'll be back at full HP by the time the Fake Preds are really ready to jump on this.
And I want to point out, while this is going on, remember Outsiders that made their pathing a while ago? Well, they're pretty close to this position. Now we also have Raptors moving in. This could be a four-way fight as Fake Preds do get some vision into this, get a ton of damage, waiting to see if they can make a proper location and push into this one. Looks like the fact that they want to lean into safety. Route taking some damage, but here comes the continued press. Everybody coming down, working together. They've got the angles, they've got control. Daniel's taking some damage, but support is going to be there.
Vilex and the rest of his team just do not want to take this fight at the end of the day, but they're not really being given a choice forced on them as Fake Preds knew that that crunch was coming in from the third party. They needed to take up positioning at least on the second floor, and thankfully for their sake, they've been able to do so, but that absolutely does not mean they are safe. As you can see, Woko already going down low. Both of his teammates just a second later are dead on the floor. He has really no choice but to evacuate from this position and has already used his Q as well, so doesn't have the safety of that to guarantee on any type of re-engagement into the fray. Would have more than likely meant Woko's death, so he is out for the count. If he gets an opportunity to sneak back in and grab the banners, that'd be great, but not looking like he's going to have that opportunity as he's in hot pursuit on the way out. Not even going to be able to make it. There goes the Fake Preds down in 17th place.
And that is a new team coming into here. So we are back to 4 teams, two on each side of what's going to be going on this wall. Looking through it, I think the fact that Outsiders have realized they do not want to be here, so moving away from it, New Circle is going to be revealing itself in just a second. And it's going to lean into the west. Checkpoint, North Pad, those are going to be our key factors to look in. So Outriders already making their move, already getting to a good point, should be in a good spot, as well as while they're roaming around, at least finding the circles.
Parallel just with free Overwatch right now onto this entire POI down below them, so going to be keeping full control over that for the foreseeable future here until they aren't necessarily going to be forced to rotate away from it in the wall. We'll have all this Overwatch established, and thankfully I don't believe they're necessarily going to have a whole lot of other team coverage on the inside of this one. Everybody else has begun to rotate away from this for the most part, or just sitting on the extremity of it. They're going to try to catch the Valcolt as the one team tries to reposition, but not going to be able to do that much considerable damage. They'll make it over to the gates at the edge of the wall here and deeper into the facility from that point forward, kind of ruining Parallel's Overwatch here. They'll more than likely move as well. Away from that. Back over to our map, we'll see how the rotations are going, as we are seeing at least one, it looks like a solo as well. They're way on the north side of the current white circle. You can see it in green. There's Sabroso trying to run away, but he's immediately jumped on by 2 other players from a squad. Oh, he's jumping between gravity cannons, I think is what's happening there. So he ends up landing back on the other side. There's someone from that other team still waiting there, so more than likely that player, I would imagine, is going to go down sooner rather than later, but we have another fight going on as well. You can see Sakura and Winter, just a little something, getting close to each other, as that is another fight that's potentially going to broil out here in just a second. I believe we're jumping on board with that one now. MoFam trying to get their third back up and into the fray here, but in a troublesome position. It's going to lead to the death of pretty much the entire squad pretty quickly here, as they will not be able to thrive in a very open position like that. Only really had that like a generator or an AC unit to fall back on, and even that wasn't a secured position for them. So taken down. Outsiders, as you're going to see on the kill feed, they're also eliminated, knocking out the first 5 or so teams in the lobby.
North America bringing it. That's the only thing you can really say. We've now seen the end of what looks like it's going to be that massive storm in the northeast of it, where I think that Parallel is going to come out pretty well. Now our eyes are going to be looking to the southeast, as we do have 4 teams that are going to be coming around Cascade Falls and open path and could be leading some fights over there. Most of the circle has calmed down with the way that the lines and the cliff facings have come into play. There are choke points, but it is pretty controlled, all considered. Really, it's just going to be about spotting out pathing as they move in and trying to break down some doors so that way you can make sure you can flush out people as you go.
That's going to be Doja catching out at least one player fully there, and then we're going to find any teammates nearby trying to scavenge that potential position or get some revenge for it. So, the unfortunate loss for that squad that ends up dropping that player, but Doja obviously will excel on that one. It's going to be one of the players from the Chickens, leaving only Golden Reaper in the fight for his squad. Ken trying to go in and grab his teammates. That's true, he's not. We've got Darth and Mex. We just don't have whatever Golden Reaper wants to be in Chicken for. We got to figure that one out.
I guess chickens can be golden. That works, right?
I mean, yeah, no, that works. That rolls off the tongue pretty well. Golden chicken. I don't know. He could.
They're a yellowish color. So we'll allow it. We'll allow it.
He wants to be a Reaper, so we'll let him be him. You know.
Got to live your best life.
Yep. Yeah.
Problems are continue to be a thing around what's going on to the east, as most of our teams around Cascade Falls have now made their way to the north. You can see it's going to be your boy and Sword Ghost putting in some pain on the other side of this one, but it's going to be Kill Zoom as well as Joker that have managed to step away from this one. Young Dim God and the rest of the team in distance, also aware of what's going to be coming in and jumping to third party this one. So this fight needs to end quickly, otherwise it's just going to get more problematic.
Yep, it's just sitting on the top end of this one, able to rotate towards it. Is going to slowly be forced down to the top side of this one as the circle begins to close in on them. But for the time being, they are taking absolute control of their current vertical advantage in the side of this scenario here. On board with Theater 3, who we haven't been able to watch too much of just yet, as they're on the run down this hill further. Obviously trying to set themselves up. This was the team we mentioned at the beginning, picking up the Caustic. So as they get towards the final circle, this team will start to grow in strength, obviously, as Caustic's barrels are going to be able to cover more and more of the potential playable area, and as well, that AoE ultimate becomes even better and better as we get down to those final moments. You need to play things out until they get to that point, but now potentially going to be jumped upon as we have another team trying to swing down around them. It's just not necessarily expecting to find a fight here, though. They're going to bail out pretty quickly, just wanting positioning more than anything right now.
Yeah, this is about to be a mess. This is no longer in an area that's along the safe zone. Instead, it's just a firefight, and his teams are now trying to scatter, make sure that they keep themselves alive. But the really proactive factor inside of this one is going to be Theater 3. You can see maintaining a high level of harassment. His teams are taking this opportunity to jump away and get past them, though. They are on the tail end of this, and which means the fact that they have to be comfortable with nobody back behind them. That means the fact that now everyone has gotten in front of them.
Yeah, this is absolute chaos coming in from the east side of the circle. That is one part of this map you do not want to be involved in right now, as there's not enough room for you to make it unless you're in the front. We can even see there was like 2 additional teams involved in that rotation from the northeast side of the map right now. And they just decided, no, this is way too crowded. We're going to give up. We're going to go all the way around to the south end and wrap literally all the way around the map to be able to get back into the circle another direction, because it's just far too congested. And we're going to start to see that now as all these squads group up. Not every one of them can make it out of this alive. Looks like we are seeing the scattering begin to happen, though, as they enter the actual playable circle area, of course, but room to actually play from is going to be sparse. That leaves teams fighting for even just rooftop positioning, as you're seeing right now here. Braxolotl.
This is a big fight, as we've got Dynasty and the rest of his team right down below this. BNB not afraid to take a firefight, but Axolotl spends too much time in a vulnerable position. Now getting third and fourth partied as there is a full team. Jude Bruton and the rest of the team now coming up back behind them. They have got the close range fight near on no one alive, as After Die is going to go down, and Raptor has just got to run, hoping the 404 is not an error code.
Another rat has been birthed here for Raptors. That makes at least 2 if we assume that our other one that we watched earlier is still in the fight. On board with a 2 squad in the meanwhile. Aim assist over here. Just rocking with the 2 of them at the moment. We'll see if they get a third later on in the day, of course, as that's been kind of common here. We saw that in Europe for a few of our squads with their third grouping up a little later, but still, for the time being, holding on. However, it does appear as though the 2 players have been split up quite a bit. His teammate 200 meters from his current position, so that'll cause some obvious problems. We'll have to wait and see, of course, as they look to try and group themselves back together. But there we go. Going to be able to find that a little bit more easily now.
Yeah, they're kind of in their own isolated position. Really, it's about what's going on around North Pad. This is where everybody cool is hanging out, it feels like right now. Sword Ghost is going to be jumping into this. You can see at range, with the rest of the team going to be landing down. They do make landfall pretty close to Raptor, who we saw as last one up. Also pretty close to Golden Reapers. So our chickens are still alive, as well as Raptor. But another squad going to be coming in back behind this as well. So the entirety of the north is getting even more compressed, as the area around Checkpoint also now about to have 4 teams. And this is going to be the firefights.
Thankfully, the trenches giving a little bit more room for those teams to play into it. I'm actually pretty surprised the amount of teams that have been able to survive that rotation, especially considering how crunchy it was getting over there towards the northeast side of this one. It's just, so far, has been putting up a fantastic defense when they've been challenged in similar fashion before, but this is maybe pushing it just a little bit too much over to the edge of the circle now, on a flat plane, essentially trying to fight this one out. Already so low. They're trying to avoid the fight out right here if they can avoid it, but they have no choice. They're forced into it. The ring as well, just eating away at them. Thankfully, the Wraith having the Q to be able to escape some of that damage, but once more, both of the teammates down for the count. No chance of recovery. It's just D on their own now, as they have to run away and try to rat this one out.
It's going to be so messy down in these trenches. Right now, we already have 4 solos that are hanging out inside of it. You can see that's going to be just D, Raptor, as well as Golden Reaper all holding out. Dynasty and the rest of the team still fighting over to the north, but Zombies and the rest of CCS getting control over the high ground that looks into the trenches. But let's not forget about everything that's going to be going on with BNB, who still holds the northern part of Northpad with all of the vision.
Some of the rats starting to fall off there as we see Chi Collectors and It's just going down. At one point a second ago, we had, like, I think slightly under 2 players per squad, if you did the math right on it. Even right now, we're still at pretty much 2 players per squad. We got 10 squads left, 21 players alive. So there is a lot of broken teams still trying to fight for positioning inside of this game. Any squad with a full 3-player lineup is going to be at a pretty big advantage here. Just need to play their positioning for the most part. We can see another one of those rats more than likely there at the bottom of our screen before we panned away. Dynasty trying to hold on for dear life here and push the envelope as far as possible for his team.
We've seen the circle continue to push into Northpad, so all of our teams now leaving the choke point are going to join into the trenches, which is already messy. You can see what's going on around that southern choke point. Milk Bros trying to hold somebody out, but it's not going to work. With the jump coming in, Gulio and the rest of the team going to be landing very close to the Winarski coming through here. Is you got to pardon us, we're getting thrown a whole bunch of new names for the very first time, so we're trying our best to handle them all, but this is about to get really, really crazy with 21 people still alive and a trench firefight coming.
You basically have a risky choice to make here. Do you go down below and risk potentially running directly into another squad if you don't have vision on them, or do you try to take the top route? Obviously a lot more open, a lot more susceptible to fire coming in from the launch pad itself. Thankfully, the pad has mostly been obscured by the ring at this point, so that vertical advantage is going to go away. We can see another one of our rats here. This is Dynasty, who we talked about before. He's the last one alive for B&B. Squad that got wiped down to a single player pretty early on in this game, so nicely done to survive for this long. But now over to the Milk Bros, and we're going to go for a hot landing. I'm very surprised this rooftop was not already taken, but it is now. More players moving in from the other side as the squad interior to the building itself drops down on this one. We have another Horizon team leaping into the fray from the side as well. At least 3 squads, if not more, involved in this. Basebird immediately realizes his team's mistake and tries to dive down to the depths, but won't be able to escape. He goes down. The chickens were also eliminated over the course of that one. That will leave Golden Reaper finally out. He goes down to Dynasty as well, one of the other lone solos in this game right now, so wins out a 1v1 for his team's control. Parallel seems like they are still in the immediate control for this building, but they may not want to necessarily be here for all that much longer. This is the hot zone. As you can see, the fight continuing on now down below into the depths of the building as they look to try and clean this up as much as possible. And for Tech, he's going to find someone completely new apparently to wipe out. That'll be the last player alive from B1. Doja also falling out as of a few seconds ago. And for Parallel, they're already engaged against another team. Just a little something regretful in the middle of a fight right now, so this is still not over yet.
Parallel has done such a great job at defending up this position. Everybody was jumping in, wanting to hang out where they were hanging out at, and they have done a phenomenal job at holding it up. Closest new contender, though, is going to be CCS, as it's going to be a vie for control of a very desperate position. If you can hold on to this one, then you can hold on to the game. CCS knows that, but with everything going on, Parallel has the high ground and the control of what's going to be going on. The only real contenders that could be coming into this one is going to be maybe Robrand and his team that are going to be playing over into the east. All lineups now starting to set as calm as settled, and everybody's just trying to get an idea on what's going to be coming down next.
We've stabilized the player situation as well. Still going to be looking at quite a few squads that'll be broken here, as we've got 6 squads, 13 players left alive. We'd generally be expecting around 18 right now, so that means we've got about 2 to 3 of these at least that are going to be down a player or 2, potentially a few more that are just down to 2 outright, but we'll get a better handle of that. For instance, the real Winsky, as we can see right here, more than likely just working with a 2-stack. Raptor sitting over in the corner, trying to keep his team in the fight as well. It's a tense scenario for so many of these players. And we actually ended up with a really dope final circle spot here, too, because of the trenches. So it's given a lot more room for the Rats to actually have some contention inside of this situation.
I really like this reposition from Parallel, realizing the fact that with lower numbers, the high ground might be a larger problem. Instead, come down to where the loot's at, get more equipped, get more prepared. It's easily defendable as it all lines up together. So now everybody is going to have their eyes set to the higher ground positions, and that is going to allow you to get control and move through the trenches at your own will.
Watson, meanwhile, up on top of this roof has been doing some absolute work there. That is a fence line that you will not be getting past so easily. it's not even going to be so easy to even take them out either, just because of the way the angle play out there. So that should be a pretty safe position for CCS now with all the Watson fences deployed. They're going to be able to spot at least one straggler running out. He won't be alone, however. He knows he's been revealed, so going to be a little bit cautious on that peak. Only loses about 30 HP from it. That'll be an easy recovery. They know that there's more underneath as well, but there's also still 4 other squads to worry about, so they can't tunnel vision on this one too heavily. Have to keep their wits about them in the event one of the squads down below decides to jump up. Once again, massive props to Dynasty. Made it through this transition, has found himself a new little spot to hide out in, so he's still keeping himself in the play for B&B as they've made it pretty deep into this run now with just that single player alive.
Looking through OG, the team that's out in the distance might have a benefit of their own. Sure, they're in the trench, everybody can see them, they're getting harassed, but they're actually separated away from all the other teams. Everyone else, all 4 other teams, including our solo Dynasty, are all holding down a position right on top of each other. So as a firefight breaks out, it's going to be all over the place. You can see CCS still just trying to hold down this position, and this is all beneficiary for OG, who's on the outside in the east, and just hearing as this lines up, they can just move into the circle so much easier and get control over the center.
Great counter to the fence play coming in there as well by opening it up, of course, with the ultimate to get the airstrike down and get rid of all the fencing play here. CCS is now having a hard time maintaining, and once again, who else but Parallel? They've been such smart fighters throughout this game so far, and they're going to be the one to potentially take down that huge bunker setup that have been deployed onto the inside. Nicely done as they force them out. They're going to send them down into the basement now and steal their positioning. As Parallel, the kings of the castle, now up on top here, and they're going to look to try and maintain this throughout the end of the game. Obviously, the circle closing in is going to get in the way of those plans a little bit, but now they have, as you can see, the highest vertical position in the remaining portion of the circle. That doesn't necessarily translate to automatic victory. As you can see, we have airstrikes rolling out right now, trying to force them off the top of that building. Tech's going to be able to take down Werwinski as well from OG as they survive with all 3 players up until this final push right here. Losing those players very quickly now as they are forced into it. However, Angel knocked out of his shields. The other teammate still sitting at full, but as they try to push together, once again, it is Parallel standing tall on top of this tower, just harassing anyone that tries to contend against them or is forced out by the circle here. There's another target being shown over for just a little something. He'll be able to crack it out. Another one follows that one. OG eliminated, just not able to contend with the positioning they were playing from, unfortunately, once they were finally pushed into a fight.
Now jumping in, 2 squads left. Parallel in control for so long. They're aware of what's going on down below them. Quick sprays coming in, makes it look easy. Parallel lining up a phenomenal game to start off everything.
Couldn't hand it to a more well-deserved team if I tried. Parallel such smart fight tactics throughout the entirety of this one. Even, on the aggressive front too, took a few risks. Wasn't just holding it back and playing the game super safely. They knew when they potentially had to try and go down in the process of trying to take some more control for themselves, and they were still able to win it out at every single opportunity, giving them, of course, the first place finish. And on top of that, quite a healthy amount of KPs probably for this first game too.
I didn't know you were allowed to win with Pathfinder anymore, but it looks like Parallel has found the ways to do it. I know you always hear everybody ranting about the hitbox and everything else, but I guess if you're in the control of one of the strongest points in the entirety of the circle for, 3 circles in a row, maybe the hitbox isn't the biggest problem.
Yeah, definitely the case there. So excellently done by Parallel, and they really, again, had to work for it. Got pushed down below earlier on of the kind of scrap heap we had fighting for control over that final building into that circle. Had to kind of just bide their time down there too. Pushed off at least, I think, 2 squads that were trying to push against them from that bottom partition, and then made the final play that eventually managed to get another squad up from the position there that they were maintaining as well. So
5 squads at the end that all approached that area that they had to fight out against and win.
It was like very scrappy too. I mentioned it at one point. We were looking at the majority of teams only having like 2 players in the fight, as so many were brought down to either a single or were in some other way missing their 3rd player or even their 2nd player sometimes as well. Every team really had to work just to get into the top 5. This was not an easy first game for any team, and a lot of that probably had to do with that massive crunch we saw on circle 2 or 3 with everybody funneling in from that same sort of northeastern choke point that probably took out quite a few individual members and created the very ratty situation towards the end of the game.
Well, we've been seeing hard shifts predominantly today, especially if you were watching EU as well. But whenever we couple in with way more squads inside this lobby, that means you have got to fight tooth and nail as these hard shifts going to come into play. Choke points become bigger factors. Control over area. Making sure that you're making as much of a punishment to every single team that moves near you as you can is so pivotal for success. And you saw that was exactly how Parallel took control over this game. They were moving through this area. This was their home, but they never decided to get locked down and trapped in a specific spot of this area. Instead, they were always playing the most advantageous part of it.
even that clip we just watched right there, it's just crazy stuff to see from Parallel, where they're like, oh, we're engaged against another squad. Oh, I found this rat over here. Give me a second. Let me just split off from my team and go kill him. You're not going to see that in a normal tournament. You'd be hard stuck with your teammates in most situations there. So Parallel, not only, of course, winning out these fights, but going for value as they split themselves up, take an even bigger risk by detaching it into a second separate fight to be able to quickly take down a rat there and just guarantee an extra KP for themselves. Beautiful, beautiful play from Parallel. Easily the highlight of Game 1. And now the question is, who's going to keep up the heat with them? Who's going to contend against them in some of our future games? We definitely saw some teams that we're going to be keeping our eyes on, I think, in the future games, but for the time being, it is all coming down to this squad here on Parallel.
Oh, don't count out everybody yet. We still got a ton of strength in here. BNB Fake Preds, you know they're not going to take this sitting down, but all right, let's just go ahead and start this off with a 16-kill victory, because that's just going to be how the day rolls, because we're kicking this one off with what? That makes 28 points off the very first game.
Got an average of 2,000 damage per player as well. You can see him racking right up there. 1984, 2026, and 2157. Every single player on this team bringing out that value in one way or another. Definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with, and if players see that composition lineup in the future, they might want to head the other direction if it's an open field fight, as Parallel seems to have the edge in that regard, though. Gotta agree with you, though, especially with regards to some of the other teams like B&B, who I believe, if I remember correctly, had that solo going so deep into this game. That's another team we're going to be keeping our eyes on. If one player alone can make that much of a push, very curious to see what the full squad can do, and they have a little bit better luck towards the beginning of the game.
As I've been doing some of the weeks together, this just is going to be the nature of North America. These guys are going to fight, and it's not going to relent until the end. Parallel gets the first game with that 28 points, but don't count out Doja, CCS, B&B, even OG. We talked about so many of these teams getting involved in firefights and eliminations. The keys to success is, yeah, Doja went down early, only getting 2 placement points, but 15 kills makes that up quick.
Yeah, that's going to leave them in second place despite being knocked out. Probably somewhere around like 10th or 11th with that point total there. So really good stuff coming out from Doja to pick up 15 kills despite that and still be able to keep themselves in second place. Kills do fall off past that point, but hopefully we're going to be able to see those teams improve. And I mean, for B&B's sake, it's actually somewhat surprising to see them have 5 elims total. They may have had a full squad wipe before the 2 out of 3 of them got taken down, but that third player, Dynasty, was able to win at least one detached 1v1. Probably snuck off 2 to 3 of the other KPs that we're seeing here for the team while he was alone as well. So once again, highlighting onto that squad and what we may potentially see from them once the full 3 gets a bit deeper.
Yeah, if you remember, they were the ones that were involved in some of those early fights in that northwestern area, and if you can capitalize off of a hot drop, it's great, but you can see just the early aggression. While they did win their firefight, it brought so many other teams to them, and they just could not handle the tide that was coming through there. So respect, like we were talking about, Dynasty finding a way to navigate, which should have been an easy-to-kill solo, and he never, ever gave them the chance to do it.
Thankfully, I got a circle as well that played pretty heftily into the hands of the kind of individual players because of all the trenches that was interworking the terrain out a little bit.
Well, the mid-game, maybe. Then at the end game, there was squads all running to that for safety.
Yeah, seemed like the case. We still had quite a few that were able to work their way into it, though, so made for a fun time. Curious to see now how the second game is going to go, as we've got a lot of close competition here. Parallel, of course, setting the standard with their performance in game number 1, but they're going to be hard-pressed to find a smooth run like that going into the next 4 drops, I think.
Oh, yeah, and it's just going to get crazier from here because remember, we always start with a slow game, so that way everybody can kind of set their pace. If that's our slow game, I'm about everything that's going to be happening in these next 4 rounds. We're trying to get the next lobby booted up as fast as possible, but moving forward, I don't know. The nature of the beast that seems avoid hot drop because we had a ton of those at the start. And also, it seems like Circle 1 and 2 was a problem for a lot of teams. Just being able to make it into position with the amount of effective gatekeeping was insane. People were holding choke points and just not relenting. You were having to use so much utility just to get into the circle. You had near on nothing left for the firefight once you got there.
Things won't even necessarily stabilize going into the second game as well. It probably will to an extent, but I still imagine there's going to be a little bit of hot drop potential here because teams that got beaten out here on the first game, they're going to need to pick a new landing spot. They may have not paid close enough attention to where they're probably going to end up landing on someone else's turf and potentially challenging them as well. So I'd imagine at least for this next game, maybe the third one as well, we'll still have a little bit of a scramble for contestation on initial POIs, but after that point, we should expect the early game to smooth out a little bit as teams find safe harbor to land on, at least get their initial kit swapped out so they don't have to kind of go for the coin toss on at least the ego drop at the beginning.
There is so much. I'm like looking through this lobby and remembering previous weeks right now. While we didn't get a chance to really dive into some of them, Axolotl we know has some strength behind him. Fake Preds regularly popping off at the top of the leaderboard. B&B also. Again, we talked about Dynasty and his capabilities. There's a lot going on here, but Parallel is a ridiculously strong team. I also do want to point out for no reason, Apenex, I really love the name, and so respect for the creativity. I haven't seen that one before.
I think we can expect a little bit more to come from the chickens too. They seem like they had pretty good capability to keep up in the midst of a team fight there. I think they just ended up with some bad positioning, and that knocked them out relatively early. So I'm going to be paying a little bit closer attention to them and seeing what they can potentially forge forward to. I like the names as well. The names are nice for that. So that helps to draw my ire a little bit here. As we're just waiting for some of the final players to hop into the lobby, folks, and I think we'll be getting started with map number 2.
What do you mean? North America doing meme names for teams and themselves? Never. That's not what we do.
Absolutely not. Never seen that before. But once we get all those teams, we're going to be getting started, guys. And once again, a lot of potential to be coming out from this lobby. With obviously, again, the fact that we're on Stormpoint 2 makes the circles, in my opinion, very different on each drop to drop. So that is potentially going to change up the scope of who may end up on the top of the heap there. If we end up with a much more kind of open circle this time around going into our second drop, that could obviously make things a little bit more difficult for a few of the squads. The squads with Newcastle's, for instance, may find a little bit more strength there, as we were seeing quite a few of those picked up. I think we had like 3 to 4 squads with him picked as well over the course of that game.
The pressure of the map creates its own independent variable just due to it's just very hard to stay alive with the amount of teams that we have in here. You have to expect that somewhere there's going to be an early drop, and it leads to a lot more of a stressful rotation period. Specifically, you saw that in moving into Circle 1. As we're looking through everything, all the teams dropped over to the edge. The center was pretty open because nobody wanted to risk dropping in there and having to fight their way back out. We might see a modification off of that, but so many of the POIs still lean to the edge. I just don't know. People might just opt into going for scrap. Say, okay, let's just jump into this one, see if we can get 3 kills, and then fight our way into the rest of it.
Well, it looks like we are done wondering, I think, folks, as I believe it is just about time to get ourselves into that second drop. Let's go in once again towards Stormpoint and see who is going to end up on the cream of the crop once again. Will it be our Game 1 champions? Will they just be able to stomp over the competition, much like it seemed like they were able to do in Game 1? Or some of those other teams, BNB, potentially some of the others as well, are going to be able to step up here and challenge them to claim the title on Game number 2. Let's get ready to find out, as in just a moment here, we're going to be getting those legend selects up on the screen, and once again, we'll be able to see if there's going to be any interesting stuff being played out by any of our teams here today.
Yep, maybe more Pathfinders. Might see that one come into play. But really, I was kind of impressed by the fact that we saw so much defensive capabilities come out. Like, we really didn't see a very hefty defensive line come out in Europe. And we usually don't see it in America either. But that was very well executed. Specifically, when we looked into the Northern Open fights, we saw a lot of walls being dropped, a lot of security around position that really stalled out a lot of the fighting that was going on in the field and allowed those that were around that northern area and on top of the building to put in a lot of work. So I'm curious to see if the teams that leaned defensive managed to make it to the circle, but they didn't manage to make it to the end circles. Are they going to lean more maneuverability, or are they just going to say, okay, that was a lot of hard shifts, a more defensive strategy can still work if we get a center circle?
Looks like we've got a Rampart pick coming in there as well. The Caustics also staying alive for Theater 3. We didn't really get to see that used a whole lot. Unfortunately, this Theater 3 got caught up mid-rotation, but the Caustics definitely interesting if that wasn't in play for game number 1. Still sticking with quite a few of those Newcastles, though. It looks like MB High Tribe is going to be the most prominent team that I can note here that's going to be sticking with it. The rest appear to have abandoned it, unfortunately. So the Newcastle fans out there are going to be a little disappointed about what we see on this second game. Caustic fans, I think you got something to be potentially proud of, though, as I think actually second team might have picked him up if I caught it on the corner of my eye there. So we'll pay attention to that if that team gets themselves into a relevant part of this game.
Let the toxicity grow. Add more and more caustic. That only makes everything better. Moving in, everybody looks like they're making their jobs, but I do want to point out we are seeing a much later mid-drop, specifically if you look into the northeast over there. Only 2 teams around, what is that, 5, maybe 6 different POIs?
Yeah, pretty much you have Thunderwatch as well as Lightning Rod, High Point, all that's open for just the 2 teams that decided to land over there. No one even drifting towards it late when they see it's relatively open as well. Man. Stormcatcher, for instance, going completely untouched at the moment. Same for Thunderwatch over on the right side of the map.
That just means a lot of hot drops.
Yeah, this is going to get busy down here towards like Gale Station, Antenna, Launchpad, this area. Expect to see a little bit of skirmishing going on here. And at the same time, we had two squads landing really close to each other towards the wall back on the central north part of the map. So a lot that could potentially happen there. Thankfully, over here on our southeastern part, there is a lot of POIs, and they are pretty far apart from each other. So for the most part, these squads, for the initial landing at least, are going to be able to disperse pretty separately from each other. But the rotate, especially for the team that decides to go towards fish farms, that's where it's going to get a little bit more rough, as we have pretty much the immediate circle cutting these teams off, and you can tell quite a few of them are more likely going to camp around here and try to see if they can capitalize on those late rotates that the far southeastern teams will need to go for.
And the tease that is the wall continues as Axolotl did drop. They got advantage, and we saw the other team retreat into the wall itself, so this is just going to lead to a more stalled out fight. We'll have to see how NTC with just two want to handle this one. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to just try to find a way to get out of here. They know that they're already coming into this outnumbered, so they've got to get a drop very early into this. Otherwise, this firefight is just not going to work. Yep, this is what you got to do. Get out.
Yep. Cannon is there, thankfully, so they might as well use it. Being a little bit scared, of course, of a potential hot pursuit, and they're right to be scared of that one as they land over here towards North Pad.
No one there.
Yeah, it's not looking like they're going to be followed either, just looking at our minimap feed right now. So more than likely going to be safe for the foreseeable future here because North Pad is, as you said, completely open. No one even landed here, so this is going to be free to take.
I'm kind of curious about what led to this desire for everybody to make a late drop. We haven't seen big firefights, so again, well navigated on the drops to figure out how to get that space. But that also does mean whenever we look at the map itself, it's only the southern half. I mean, look at how open it is up to the north. Really, just a little something, and I think that's about it. Those other teams could come in through the checkpoint side or maybe through Stormcatcher, but all of these teams down to the south are going to have some trouble making a big northern wrap, and so that's going to lead to some potential large issues. Sorry, my brain shut off for a second because I'm very happy about what's going on.
We've got a rampart shield on the front of a car, so this will be fun to see what is potentially done with this. But back to your point, I mean, who doesn't want beachfront property? I mean, right? Like, with regard to the landing zone thing, everybody just landed on the south side here. But I think in reality, it's probably coming into effect of the fact that the rotates are a little bit more easy to see. You can potentially not get yourself caught by like running into a massive stack, which I think is way more likely to have happen if you're rotating through the very mountainous northern part there, where someone or an entire squad potentially could be hiding out behind like a rock formation or something like that and have a really good flank initiation on you. A bit harder with this type of terrain as you're seeing it surround you now, so maybe teams feel just a little bit more comfortable roaming around out here for the start of the game compared to the other part of the map.
Love the teamwork coming in. You see that? Open it up. We're polite, marked out who gets the helmet. Now jumping in and continuing on their merry way. So as we look at this, the pathing is going to continue for Outsiders as they're going to move very close to our Chickens team. It looks like they're going to be just to the south of what we're going to be looking at. And actually, looks like this is going to be way closer than I think they were expecting it to be.
In the case, as they spot things out on the
Yep.
banner there, realizing the fact that they've got someone close by. They don't want it as well. They're not even going to try to seek that team out. They're just immediately evacuating away from this. Big air as well on this jump. Nicely done for the Outsiders. They're going to return to their previous little bunker they set up alongside this care package. And also, it looks like we've got another unnamed sitting here that they can, or rather barometer over here, that they can head into and pretty much loot for free.
Well, yeah, there's another team that's chilling pretty close to this, though. That's the kind of the downside to a lot of this roaming early strategy is you never get a firm controlled area off the start. So got to be very careful. You can see as they're moving through this with CCS, though, finding themselves in a very big fight. This is going to be right along the edge over into the west, catching this one very early, but CCS looks like they've got this one under control.
Yep, just mopping up things inside of the armory real quick. Kind of abusing the fences as well to make it a little bit easier so they're not under any threat for themselves. We even got the finisher going off. But the problem is, yeah, they've got someone else waiting for them, as you can see here. So the second they press that launchpad button and try to escape this hatch, that's when things are going to get dodgy. It's going to be a few minutes. Obviously, they've got to loot things out on the inside of all their crates and whatnot. You can see the scan coming in. Now they know, if they weren't already aware, those footsteps can be quite loud on that roof. So I doubt CCS was completely blind to what had been going on. But will they try to go for the direct contestation, or will they try to wait for the circle to close? They're going to be waiting a while if they want to sit in here and wait the circle out, but they could, in theory, do it if they don't want to take the chance on that fight with the opponents above them.
I mean, at this point, it's a safe area. It's fairly defendable. There's no harm in holding this down for a while. You know the fact that you're probably looted better than whoever's on top of you. Now, the issue comes in as we look back to the north. It's going to be another part of the movement rotation problems, as it's going to be Axolotl that has managed to spot out Bombardment and his team playing to the south right along Cascade. And it's going to be a continued press, as I think that this is a contained fight. Just these two teams near each other.
Looking like it at the time being here. No one else even really within audible range of this potential fight, so Axolotl free to fully engage on it. We'll check in with it soon, though, as it looks like CCS successfully got themselves outside of that IMC Armory. They're going to be feeling nice and cozy now with all the loot that they have picked up for themselves. Gunna specifically with a fully loaded flatline there from the looks of it, so going to be feeling nice and comfy with that setup, but well, how to escape that other team. Looks like they made it out without too much of an issue. As you can see, a few shots being sent at them, the passive from the Bangalore being activated there, but not really going to be anything that team can hard commit to. And the Valkyrie, of course, still available too if they need to reposition a second time, which they feel they're going to potentially need here. Wako and the rest of his squad did have a player go down, but it looks like they also just closed out on a fight. So 3 KPs going over to the fake Preds. I believe they're actually the first team to fully commit and successfully knock out a squad as well.
Looking into this around Stormcatcher, not a lot of threats coming in, so just making sure to get the last touch of loot. Early circle not going to be the most terrifying thing in the world to go step out, so route should be fine as long as the meds come into play. There you go. That's going to pop up. New circle has popped and revealed itself, and that's going to be beneficial to just a little bit of something the rest of the team. Dynasty also pretty close, and BNB, as it's going to be kind of centered. Even Cascade Falls keeping some part of it in play.
Aside from that, though, on a current partition of the map for the fake Preds, they're not having any immediate contest against them, so we'll stay in the fight. But we're seeing a lot of downs, as you can see there. The chickens look like they're in trouble, but at the same time, MB High Tribe is going to be fully knocked out first from the inside of this engagement. And as well, the chickens look like they came back again, so I can see Golden Reaper in the kill feed there, so they're able to survive, keep themselves in it to some extent. It is truly just Golden Reaper in the fray, however, and even he's not long for this world. It would appear his teammate now fully knocked out. We'll go back over to the POV of the Chi Collectors, as they were also just recently closing out on a fight. That's who we went to on our first swap just a few seconds ago. It looks like they've got pretty much everything under their control for the time being. Might still have a squad close by, however, they're looking to fight against, and indeed some shots going to ring out there onto their horizon. We've got even more action than that happening, that we'll check in with B&B. They are also in the midst of trying to escape, just from a Prowler nest from the looks of things, though. Not taking any huge damage, but we did see a shot going on to ADMP a second ago, so they might just be trying to dodge that potential engagement by heading back through the fence line here.
Yeah, we had Regretful and the rest of the team showing up there for Parallel. They were holding that one down, and they had BNB get pretty close to them, realizing the fact that it's not really worth taking the fight at that position, especially being that centered coming in. This is what I was concerned about. The South is about to get absolutely explosive. No pun intended, as we're going to be jumping in with aim assist, but we have at least, I would say, 7 to 8 teams that are all going to be pathing right by this antenna area. So while having to burn the jump early, aim assist is at least going to get past Crown King and the rest of the teams that were stopping them, but they're going to be jumping into another potential firefight, as there are 2, if not 3 teams directly in front of them. There you go.
Apenex going to be able to catch MoFam in the middle of a transition here. We'll take some damage from it. As you can see, Hypnotics being brought down pretty low. Shield swap, though, quickly solves that problem, and it's going to put him right back in a similar position that he was a second ago here. Just needs to get that full heal off and wait and see what else this team can potentially venture towards. They're going to be able to maintain safer positioning now. The squad that we just saw redeploy is having another squad hot on their tail, and you can see where Whiskey going down there to Peony inside of that fight, just on the southeastern edge of the circle. Not the only point we're fighting, just outside of Antenna. Oh no, Apenex being jumped on here for a new fight as well. Cool beans, nicely done to get out of there, but not nicely done to get to the interior of the building. Doesn't get a chance to sneak the battery off, bringing it all onto Zeri, who will not be able to survive, leading to the elimination this time around of Apenex again, right around 15th place.
That was Parallel, I believe, that jumped in on that one. So BNB, who still roaming out. You can see our kill teams, you know, the ones that really lean into getting the KP at the end of the day, are venturing out of the circle and safe zone, even though they got control of it beforehand, so that way that they have some type of pathing to get back into it, but still looking around to see if maybe they can spot somebody that's late in rotation, see if there's a third party that they can try to capitalize off of. Because, yeah, getting to the circle is great for them, but they also know the fact that they can fight their way in and pick up more KP and more of a chance to climb the leaderboard. So CCS, another team that's going to be following that strategy, as I think that they have 2 teams around them.
Indeed they do. This is our big Western crunch right now. Everybody trying to swing around past this big rock, blocking off the divide between all these teams, as well as the circle. CCS, though, just not going to be able to hold on inside of that one. Doja knocking him out. And man, June, happy the fact that they knocked him out. Apparently, he's going to gloat about it a little bit. A few shots going into the corpses, but either way, going to be able to take them down. And we're not done yet. Another engagement. I believe we're jumping back in over on the southeastern partition of the ring, and indeed we are. are. We've got at least 2, if not 3 squads in the middle of this fight, Parallel being one of them, trying to maintain their positioning and to push it ever further here. Already looking strong, of course, after the first game.
They stepped out. They've got 2 teams that are going to be in a gatekeeping position around them, but that is exactly what they want. They know the fact that there's going to be a fight that's going to be brewing over here, so they can continue to follow it up. Also, catch-up stragglers just trying to make it into the zone. Problem means the fact that they're going to be chilling in the zone while this is going to go, so that is going to burn some of their meds off, but they're hoping that they're going to get enough damage into this one to be able to very quickly follow up. Instead, it's more about doing some damage control right now, as we're about to have a lot of teams on this path. New Circle has popped, and it leans west yet again. So Parallel says, you know, this might be too much of a choke point and might be eyeing maybe eating some ring damage to get a safer rotation.
Yep, they're going to back up from this one. As you can see there on the bottom right side of the mini-map on your screen now. Too hot of a scenario. They feel they don't need to stay inside of this one, especially considering that we've got 3 other squads still engaged on each other just inside of the border that they would be trying to cross, and 2 more just past that as well. You can see Golden Reaper, the last rat alive now for the Chicken Squad, is waiting over in the corner of that one, and it's just one along with the rest of his team further off to the west. Doja going to get jumped on here, once again checking in with a different part of the circle, now on the northeastern side of it, where Doja was just pushed out here, looks like by in part the fake Preds, who are now going to be jumping onto another squad entirely sitting directly next to them.
Yeah, and the way that we see this one lining up is going to be Axolotl. That's going to be on the other side of it. Going to have to figure out how they're wanting to do this one. But looks like, hey, we're just going to go ahead and separate out. Problems solved. So with this, fake Preds got control over the area, but it's not inside the safe zone. So they're going to go ahead, do some shopping before they make their way into the circle. Early rotators have been beneficial, with 2 teams now getting pretty strong positioning, as well as B&B, who just now came in, making our 3rd team in the zone. That's a very weird ending circle. I just want to go ahead and give you guys a heads up on it. It's very water heavy, which means the fact that we're going to get beachfront. We do get a couple of like hidey holes around the sides of it with the choke points, but this is going to be a very open firefight location, so we're going to have to play this one very, very carefully.
There is about 1 structure inside of that circle, and it is already taken by a team on the northeast end of it. So not really going to be a whole lot that teams can fight for unless they want to try to steal that away, and that would immediately ring the dinner bell for the pretty much the entirety of the circle at this point, given how close to each other everyone else is. Still 13 squads in the fray, by the way, so things are going to get even more chaotic in about 20 seconds when the movement will be forced out from all of these teams. NTC, who has been floating around here as a duo, has actually found a nice little care package for themselves. Oh, and it has an even nicer Kraber sitting on the inside of it. Do they want it, though? They're actually going to leave it. They don't feel... Oh, no, there we go. He picks it up. Just a little bit of lag on that one. So,
well, I mean, look at this. Why would you not take a Kraber?
Yeah. I was like, Kraber so in a competitive lobby and you're not going to take it? Okay. But
it was probably one of those moments like, okay, who gets it? I'm willing to bet that everybody was like, okay. Yeah.
who wants the burden?
So. Well, there's a benefit. Like, the Kraber is strong in the circle to get damage at the start, but people can jump and move fast in Apex, and there's not a lot of cover to be had here. Krabers are best from highly defended positions, and this is not going to have one.
By the way, Bombardment is one other teammate continuing to move through. They have found quote-unquote safe harbor. As you can see, though, with their surroundings, it's not the safest. Still, it's nice enough position to try and line up a shot like that. 140! A little bit too low, unfortunately, to get the down, but still is going to bring out quite a bit of damage, and indeed, we'll see the player get finished off regardless. He's really just helping out another team here, as we see Dynasty moving in for B&B and cleaning up shop. Unfortunately, it has now drawn the ire onto those players. They realize one of them has a Kraber, and possibly realize that they are down a player as well. It's just going to go for the kill outright. There we go. Looks like it's going to be a nice quick sweep up here for B&B to potentially steal that away from, it was the Milk Bros that we had been watching as that duo. There's going to be actually a whole nother squad jumping out from this one as well, so the fight continues for B&B. Someone else wanted to jump into this party, unfortunately arrived just a little bit too late.
Hey, was there too much, like, land in the last circle for you? Worry not. The circle after this one is going to be mostly river at the choke point between where 2 of them are going to meet. Technically, I guess it's a conversion point between 3. B&B, though, still on the run as they've got themselves control over the north. They're trying to hold out Parallel right now, as this is going to be a very big fight. I think just a little something has only got one friend over there with him, so a disadvantaged fight. But NTC, who we were watching just a second ago, is very, very close to where we're seeing this firefight happen, as a lot of our teams are already making the position to move into a desperation circle and seeing if maybe they can find at least a cubby to hide in.
Well into the top 10 here now as B&B tries to fight for better positioning than just their lone solo teammate was able to pull off towards the tail end of the previous game. That teammate did a fantastic job just on this lonesome, and already we're seeing the effects of this team. 3 kills sitting specifically on the horizon. I would expect at least a few more aside from that as well. The horizon just was not able to contribute to B&B well on their way to a potential comeback here if they can land this with good positioning as well. Remember, those good placement points don't really start to kick in until you get to around the top 5, so things are going to stay passive more than likely until we hit that point for the teams that have not already been able to pick up a good healthy amount of KPs. B&B, in the meanwhile, well on their way to trying to proceed towards at least one of these players, but they've got to be careful about how they move forward. Don't want to overextend themselves too much, potentially lead to their elimination, as we can see, once again, just using the horizon's verticality to try and figure out where these players are moving, but not finding enough of an advantage to outright jump on anyone just yet. Axolotl will find themselves bled out, though, as they'll be the next team to fall down here.
With this, you can see the fact that B&B is trying to go after the stragglers, seeing if there's any weakened teams and see if they can pick up some more with it. Fake Preds is now leaning into a new strategy. They have to be careful. They've got Route pretty close to them. Going to go ahead and open up, get a pretty decent amount of damage with the 3-man squad. They're just going to step out into the open, realizing that they have the advantage. They want to finish this fast to deny any third-party capabilities, but runs out of ammo, is going to step away, but they still have the numbers. It's not that big of a deal. It's just going to be a matter of how this one's going to close out. But with that, we do have 2 teams to the north, almost 3 that are now positioning in as B&B here's this very, very close, just on the opposite side of this hill, coming in to try to see if they can get something out of it, and they're going to continue the harassment on the hills, on the top of this one, and now actually everybody coming into this except for Parallel. All of our teams converging into this area as this is about to be a massive 5-team firefight.
Every team realizes that it's a massive kill chain. They just need to grab the end of it, and potentially they could get themselves a full free squad wipe here. But free is a bit of a subjective word here. Obviously, a bit of work needing to be done. NTC finally going to be found out there as they are eliminated nearly into the top 5 now. Was not the squad up on top. They got fully knocked out. This is why we're not seeing direct pushes. B&B, as ADMP tries to move in for the fight itself, nearly loses his own life. Is able to control this firefight, though. Gets himself away from it, but does end up going down. As we switch the POV over to It's Just, they'll end up being fully eliminated. B&B was able to maintain, and more importantly, ADMP gets the swap off, so he's ready for another fight if Fake Preds or another team wants to try and push up against them, which is looking more and more like that as they inch closer and closer to their positioning.
You can see teams trying to rise up to the occasion. Oh, you want to pick up a big kill game off the start and think you're going to get a lead? No, now it's about time to run around and pick up what you can get. Fake Preds playing to the south. You can see that they've got the waterfall for some form of safety in what's going to be the next circle on this one. Got to be careful, though, as you can see Dynasty, the rest of the team trying to see if they can find an angle into this. I believe that Dynasty and ADMP will find it in just a second. Steps in, does have the angle, gets some shots, but there's not a lot of cover. They were hoping the fact that the closing circle was going to buy them the space and the time, but it looks like there's a different plan on the opposite side of this one from B&B. They just don't want to commit 2 people down into a 3-person fight, realizing the fact that that's going to be a big problem. No throwables seem to be left.
Fake Preds with really no room to play with here either. They are W-keying into a wall right now to keep themselves from being angled out by their opponents as they are blocked off on both sides. The good news is them going passive for even just this split second here has drawn some of the aggro away from them, from B&B specifically. They seem to be worried about another target now as they find LSC over in the corner there. That is also going to draw the interest, at least, of our current leading champions over on the other side as they are still in this one as well. Parallel looking to claim a second win for themselves as B&B. This is going to be a straggler, I believe, from Outsiders, and there we go. Yep, that's the last player from their team that goes down. Aim assist also found out there too. 2 rats again, high in the top 5 here. That very quickly reduces us, though, to a top 3 position.
With this, it's going to be the lean of the land back down to the south and a lot of known contenders. I feel like we may have talked about Parallel, who's got control over the north and had the opening strong position. Meanwhile, down to the south, it's going to be Fake Preds and B&B. We were talking about them coming into this one. The fact that maybe they weren't quite as loud as they could have been in the first game. Well, it seems like game number 2, they've got some goals. But with Parallel making it into the late game, that's going to put more stress on that leaderboard. The other 2 already compacted up against each other. They're going to have to fight this one out, and they realize it. With the position that Parallel is holding down, there is no way to detangle themselves from being right on top of each other, and with the harassment coming out, Parallel is just putting in work right now.
Regretful specifically just absolutely handing out the damage from his vault. He's almost out of ammo from him. He's got to be a little careful. Thankfully, the R381 should still be pretty healthy in that regard. We'll See if he swaps to it, if we can get an ammo count, but none of these teams want to fully commit to each other. Still have the full 3 squad left in it as well. It is going to be an outright squad v squad v squad to finish this one out. Parallel finally being forced into the open. The micro drones limiting their healing capability as well. Tech into a corner now with no HP to play on. BNB is going to take the bait, jump into this one, and that will activate our third and final squad as well. Players over here from our leading team know they need to fall back, know that they can't take this fight head on. They're still too injured, so Parallel heads up into the air, tries to get away from it. Great damage coming out from Regretful, but it's not going to be enough. He goes down. Tech, the only one left. He's going to try to dive just on the edge of the circle to allow this other team to take some of the heat off of him. Now BNB is being kill chained. They've been caught on the backside. ADMP is trying to tunnel vision to take out one of the 2 remaining squads, but no, it'll get stolen away instead. Parallel now out in 3rd place. BNB still with 2 players at full HP in a position to play from, but it's this 3rd squad sitting on the other end of it. Fake Preds that are going to be still at full strength because they were the patient ones. They waited this out, and thankfully their patience was rewarded as the fight began before the circle closed in on them. They just need to control this situation and lock in the victory now as they have the positioning to play from here. Wako, though, taking a lot of damage. He ends up going down, having a battle. Yep, that might be the reignition here that our other team needs.
And now with all of the patience the Fake Preds held while they were being battered up against that waterfall, they have the strength in numbers. They chose to jump in later, and that is going to be the benefit. BNB, though, 2 members up, losing all their shields. It's just a matter of time. 1 down. It's on the other side of it. A quick exchange. Fake Preds does manage to take it, though.
Very close game at the end.
That got dirty, though.
Yep. Definitely got dirty, especially with the final 3 squads there. We knew it was all going to be a matter of timing, who would jump into the fight first, who would win the fights the most efficiently. Fake Preds just being the patient team here to wait it out, wait until the other 2 squads were engaged in the middle of a battle, and then immediately pounce, leaving no room for that 3rd squad to recover. Yeah, a single rat straggler managed to make it away out of the fight, but not for very long, as that drew the ire immediately of the other team, who was then limited to 2 players because they got jumped on, and then it was just a matter of closing down the 3v2. Very nicely done from the Fake Preds to lock in this victory, but at the same time, our 2nd and 3rd place squads didn't go home empty-handed. They're still going to get their good placement points, and more than likely, because they were more aggressively lean, they're probably going to end up with a little bit more in the KP department, I would reckon.
That's a prime example of why we often talk about the game of chicken that happens at the end when 3 teams are up. Whoever engages into each other, it's always almost going to benefit the 3rd team that doesn't get involved more than anything else, because they can choose whatever they're going to intersect. I know it seems like common sense, but sometimes you can see that you just have to take the desperation play. You have to jump in. You saw that Dynasty got some damage into the other squad and said, okay, well, we're lined up, we're in the sandwich, so let's at least see if we can knock this down to 2 teams before we have to deal with a more dramatic situation, which they did manage to do.
An action-packed game. Apex getting themselves into the action early on. Unfortunately, paid the price for that as they draw just a little bit too much aggression onto themselves, so ended up getting knocked out right around 15th place, but still should be taking home about 2 to 3 KPs minimum from this one, so not going to be obviously straggling for points that heavy. Still should be hanging out somewhere towards our top 10, I would imagine. But again, the big focus, of course, was on the great recovery we got in this game. More so, I think, for me at least, out of BNB rather than anybody. We knew they were going to be performers here after the lone solo performance from Dynasty just in game number 1, and indeed, they did bring that heat to the table, picking up a lot of aggression, and that means a lot of KPs as well. Even though they didn't get the 1st place finish, still ended up with top 3, so going to be a very fruitful game overall for this squad, alongside other teams too, like the Fake Preds, of course, who were our ultimate victors.
While the benefit is good, they got a lot of kills, they made it into the later stages of the game, the team that got first in the 1st game did also manage to make it into the top 3. So while it's not going to be as big of a lead as it was a while ago, it is going to be still a problem of trying to catch up. And I would not be surprised if these are going to be our 3 regular culprits whenever we get to the top 4. It's going to be a composition of these in some fashion. Now, it all comes down to how many kills can you get? Can you close the gap that was set in game number 1? As you can see, these squads can fight. They can get the KP. It's just dealing with the chaos that's going on around them to accomplish it.
You're seeing the final seconds of that fight where, once again, Fake Preds, you can see, even for Fake Preds, it wasn't necessarily a walk in the park to close things down on that final circle as well. One of their 2 remaining players at that point had been brought down to about half HP, so here's the damage. Once again, ended up pretty much where you expect a team like this to go, but it's, yeah, Daniel just slaying it, man. 12 kills coming in from him specifically. 1,600 damage to accompany it. 2 kills for his other teammates as well, both at right around 1,000 or 1,100 damage, so a respectable outcome to that one. A little bit less than we saw, of course, from Parallel in game number 1, but Parallel just could not be stopped in that 1st game, so it's going to be hard to keep up with a game like that.
I feel that we're going to see a more split set of kills this time around. We did see 2 teams that walked away with a massive amount inside the last one, so Now we know who our second round winners are. Coupled after the first one, we're going to be seeing that. No surprise, coming out Parallel had themselves a phenomenal first game. Fake Prey is going to be walking through the chaos of a very chaotic game number 2. But how does it close up everything on the leaderboard? Parallel still in first, but only by 9 points. Their lead being slowly eaten away. B&B, Fake Preds, only 1 point separating them out, as Doja, who was in second, has a touch of a slide down the leaderboard.
Thankfully for Parallel holding on there, still with the most placement as well as eliminations at this point, but only by a slim margin on both of those categories. 6 points ahead in placements and about 3 kills ahead on elims as well. So both B&B and the Fake Preds can easily catch up with them. Doja not out of this one just yet either. Unfortunately, the lack of results coming in on game number 2 is what hurts them here more than anything, as they had 15 kills in game number 1. I think only like 3 then coming in from this game, but earned a little bit more coming in for the placement points as well. So just need to find some longevity is really Doja's only issue at this point. Otherwise, they are keeping up the heat for sure, at least in the kill department.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. We're kind of halfway through, you know, it's that like awkward point where yes, there are 5 games, but we're 2 done. So we're not going to say like the halfway point is halfway through the second game or the third game. So what we're going to start to do is we're going to give everybody a second to like mentally reset. But before we do, I want to remind you guys, I've been seeing some of you guys in chat. I opened up Twitch a second ago. I saw you guys talk about how you think that you could do better. Well, if you do, then go ahead and hop down to their website down below us, compete.playstation.com. Put your money where your mouth is and try to jump into what you call scrims and see how you can do inside of this one. While there is a lot on the line for what's going on with Apex, there's also a ton of other options that you can get involved in, from Rainbow Six all the way down into fighting games that we were going to be talking about a ton as we move forward. But as we said, we got to give everybody a second, reset, figure out what's going on, feel how you're going to deal with these 3 that are vying for this top position, already number 1, and see if maybe you can reset, figure out these drops. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Action's already been really hot today in Apex Legends Master Circuit Wildcards number 4 for North America, and we still have 3 more games. I love to see big games, and I love to see the fact that other teams manage to step up and line those together. And what we had a massive start with Parallel, 2 more teams managed to step up in BNB and Fake Preds, and it looks like we now have a race for first.
Absolutely. Parallel still well and in charge of the situation, given the absolutely dominant game 1 they brought to the table, but Fake Preds putting up great contention in game number 2, brought them very close to a potential tie now. Still actually going to see them all the way down in 3rd, despite the outright victory there, but obviously just a single point behind BNB, so quite easy to overcome. It's that 9-point gap, however, between BNB and Parallel, where the real challenge sits for our top 3. Doja in close contention as well. We talked a little bit about this. They're just having a problem making it to the late game right now as they picked up 15 kills in the first game, but struggled to find placement, as you can see there, with only 3 points between the first 2 games. CCS with kind of the exact opposite problem, as they've had no problem finding placement points, but they're just not finding as many kills, unfortunately, with only 4 showing right now. Down from that, the points start to diminish quite heavily, of course. Amos is still hanging on there as well, I think in 6th place, despite the fact they only had 2 players so far, so nicely done, from them as well.
Well, you're seeing the downside to what's going on in the fact that whenever you have massive point consumers in our top 4 to 5 teams, it's very difficult for everybody else to find a way to get points inside of this. And so therefore it becomes a lot more of a damage control style situation, especially whenever we're seeing hot drops contested at least close by. It's not always necessarily right on top of each other, but at least an uncomfortable position that will lead to an exchange of firefight. It means the fact that you're always playing from a behind position, and you're having to not just chase the leaderboard, but loot, and then after chasing loot, you're having to chase circles. It becomes a domino effect. So pretty much the rich get richer, and the poor get poorer.
Not to mention, of course, it's probably applied to things like these early POI domination and whatnot as well. The squads that are obviously going to be more capable at fighting and have won those earlier fights more than likely have the higher tier loot zones controlled as well. And that means that those teams are getting off to an assumably better start in the loot pool. Obviously, there's a little bit of randomness that plays into that effect, but generally speaking, with a full POI for yourself, you should be able to get everything you need. Not much further for delay, by the way, guys. It looks like we are pretty much ready to rock and roll here for drop number 3. Once again, we're not changing the map at any point here today, just sticking with Storm Point throughout the entire day, so obviously this one will be on it as well. Time to see, of course, who will potentially take the crown this time around. Will we have a new team stepping up to the plate? Will BNB, for instance, finally be able to get their first place finish that they've been looking for the past 2 games? Or will someone else completely different come in and take it away? Let's find out.
Getting everything set to move in. We'll see if we see any composition changes. We saw a very defensive lineup first time, then more standard, I would say, for game number 2. I feel that might be the tried and true, right? You just got to lean into, whenever you're having to fight for every single point, the leaderboard's close, you got to lean into your comfort picks and what you know best. And I feel like that's going to be a big part of what we're going to see moving into these comps, unless somebody has got some sneaky thing that they're waiting to bring out.
Let's take a look, see if there's any surprises to be seen. For the most part, again, I think everything's going to be sticking along with it. P1 actually bringing out a Bloodhound, which is not something we see anymore ever since the implementation of Seer. He's kind of taken priority for that pick for the most part, but obviously a little bit more of a comfort pick coming in from B1. We'll follow that along, of course, if we get that squad into it. Alongside that, though, looks like pretty much everything going to stay the same from what we saw previously.
A lack of caustic barrels in these games, by my opinion so far, Blue. I see
we're
we
up
got
to 3.
caustics.
We got another one, actually.
I want to see some barrels, man. We haven't had a chance to even really see caustic.
I know we have 3 of them that I saw there on the pick, and I think there was like 2 last game. So he's slowly growing. So maybe we'll finally get to see him.
I'm telling you, the
point.
toxicity spreads. We're gonna get 4 in the next one.
Maybe we'll finally see him sneak into a top 5 or top 10 play here. Get a little bit of that toxicity flowing out. Like I said, it's a huge advantage, in my opinion, to have him when you get to that late game, especially if you end up inside of one of the POIs where you're fighting between buildings and whatnot. But outside of that, he can be a little bit niche in that respect. So can totally understand why teams are not necessarily feeling him, at least not the teams that we've been seeing generally make it towards the tail end. The drop is well underway, though, folks, of course, and once again, it's looking like things have pretty much sorted themselves out at this point. No one going for any sort of ego contestation. I say that we do have 2 teams relatively close to each other heading towards Barometer and Cave. More than likely, they will split off from each other. However, one will take Cave, one will take Barometer, and things will remain peaceful as a result of that.
I also want to point out we're seeing a much more even spread across the map. Last time we saw a very southern lean, so good to see the teams kind of moving away from that one. We do have fish farms being kind of awkward with a team that is going to be landing, but already going to be in a gate-kept position. Luckily, center circle, pretty tried and true. Everybody should know how to handle this, but that also does mean the fact that this is going to be more open, as there's not a lot of POIs moving into these later stages of the game.
Very, very true. This is going to be quite the difficult circle to try and loot up. If you end up with a pretty underwhelming POIs, you're definitely going to want to scavenge between multiple of those on your way into the first circle, as opportunities to continue looting up are really only going to be found with a team wipe. And if you're working with a lackluster loot pool, you may never find yourself in a position to get that wipe in the first place. So get what you can early on here, as you're not going to find a lot of opportunities to find it later on. We are seeing a few shots come out here. Cheat Collector's in the midst of a fight, still with our Seer in the process of trying to scavenge his opening shield as well. Haiku never even got the opportunity for it, unfortunately, as he is just down for the count right from the beginning. A nade's going to come in, potentially getting revenge on that Newcastle, and indeed it does. Knocks out his shields entirely, puts him in a vulnerable position, but he has his two teammates, it looks like, on the other side of the building, still maintaining a pretty strong position. We're going to see Ape next get fully knocked out. At the same time that the Cheat Collectors, who we were just with a moment ago, do lose a second player as well, bringing it all down onto their Seer, who was already pretty far detached from that scenario to begin with. So he's just going to bail out here, probably steal the cart, and see how far we can get with it.
Well, problem is, there's two other squads along this pathing that he's choosing to go with. If he opts into leaning south around Gale Station, he might find a way to sneak by, maybe end up next to the chickens, but that's about the most that he has to work with. See that he's eyeing back, and he's probably getting that call from his teammates like, oh yeah, dude, it's totally fine.
He's not
Come
gonna,
back.
I don't know if he's going to be able to make it, is the thing. We'll see in a second.
I don't know if this is even... I feel like he might be getting some bad information.
If he runs and doesn't stop, he should be able to make it. But if he gets distracted by anything, his teammates are probably going to time out here. Let's see. Yeah, he's going for the wall hack scan. We'll see. Oh, yeah, he's found a team in front of him now. He's still trying to go for it, though. You got to respect it. He's trying to commit himself to his teammates, but yeah, just can't justify it at the end of the day. Ends up 180
Don't give in to peer pressure. Don't give in to peer pressure. Don't let it happen. Don't let him say the fact that it's clear when it's not. You saw that car. You know you can get out. Go get your points.
He's been spotted here now, too, taking at least a quarter of his shields away, so it is time to bail. I see not going to be long for this fight, not long for the scavenge on his teammates, and unfortunately he's out of time to do so. There goes Haiku, and Crowned King going to be expiring in just a second. So he is indeed now the lone player on this team, going to have to rat it out. So that's been the kind of trending storyline here. A lot of teams losing two or one of their players right at the beginning and then just having to basically take it as far as they possibly can. And we usually end up with like 3 to 4 of those minimum per game right now.
While we're looking at that, most people have kind of started to shift in. We are seeing that the antenna area already has 2 teams. With actually going to jump straight into that. It's going to be NTC, who we saw doing a good job in the end stages of that last game. They're going to be pretty close to the LSC teams, an unknown that looks like they're going to be leaving antenna right as soon as these come in. Just ships passing in the night.
DC continuing to wait for a correct opportunity to try and engage onto another squad. Will not be finding that so easily, unfortunately, for multiple reasons, starting from the fact, of course, that this team is only working with 2 players from the get-go, but also the weapons can tend to be a little bit lackluster. Best color also still with white shields as well, so this team just not in the best position to try and be doing any sort of adventuring or any type of engaging. They're going to have to wait until that final circle, the top 10 or so, is when they can maybe sneak in here, especially, again, if they're going to be playing with the Sentinel and just relying on their snipers. That's when they can try to do some real damage and maybe sneak a few KPs off in the process.
That is kind of the name of the game. Whenever you're the duo in a world of trios, it's about trying to be more sneaky, bring in some theft into your life, right? Trying to make sure that you can pick up the kills that are just laying in front of you, but that also means the fact that you have to move into riskier positions to try to go for those steals. So as we are looking through this is kind of what's going on back down into the south. Remember, this is where we saw 2 members of a good old, I think that's Shisti's team die, and he has managed to get safety, as now he is also an antenna, but this is kind of awkward, as we do still have 3 teams around here in Gale Station, and this is not inside the circle, so pathing could be awkward, as it's going to be a cliff facing and could lead to maybe a firefight around these choke points.
We've got High Tribe now trying to sneak their way through. Thankfully, they've got a pretty clean path forward. It's meanwhile over here with the Outsiders. They are, the pun, but outside the circle, trying
That's what they're doing, man. They love it.
Yeah. I mean, if that's the team name, right, that works perfectly. If they're just going to be playing the circle the entire time, I'd actually find that pretty cool if they were going to end up full committing to this one and just end up chilling around the edge of it for the entirety of this game. They got a little bit of crafting to do as well. They're going to remain Outsiders for quite some time. Thankfully, it's just the T1 circle, so it is just doing that little bit of chip damage, but that will increase at some point soon in the next 2 minutes or so once our Tier 2 circle begins to close in over here on the north northwest side. We got a little bit of congestion. Everybody kind of grouping up just to the west of Cascade here in this unnamed as they try to continue to fight through the rotate, get themselves over to Cascade itself, of course, where it's going to be a little bit more troublesome. Obviously, we've got a couple teams blocking that choke point off.
We see them making the rotation down to the south in B&B, but we also do have Parallel that's playing north in a choke point. So, by their powers combined, they can really make it a bad time for the two teams that are coming in behind them. I don't know if that's necessarily the plan that we've got developing at the time, as there are some small firefights that are kind of bursting out, but nothing too big. New Circle is going to pop, and it's going to go down to Antenna. So we're going to have a very choke point heavy game.
B&B is being forced away from a fight as well, one that they definitely didn't want to take for too long. At the same time, they are close to another opponent. You can see it's going to be the Sears right click. They're scanning that one out for them. I think they're potentially overestimating how many players this is, though. I'm pretty sure this is just a lone player, if I'm looking at our map correctly there. Over on the orange side, just low Angel Res trying to run away from this situation more than anything. B&B, though, panics a bit, trucks out pretty much every ability they had to scare that player away. And, I mean, it worked. It just was a pretty heavy cost, so they're going to have a lot of stuff on cooldown now. And
it pushes Angel right into another squad, who we'll probably see show up in the kill feed relatively soon. And I maybe actually manage to sneak by. We'll have to see how that one goes. Angel doing a good job of sneaking by Blitzky and the rest of the team. Now looking through everything. Oh, never mind. Oh, gee. You can spot it out. But hey, it's time to party back over here as we've got the known commodities already holding down the choke point.
Yep, Parallel here. You can see one of their players heavily injured as well. In fact, about to potentially go down, but it looks like they may have come out on top of it. Axolotl being eliminated from that engagement, but still down a player. This fight's not over just yet either. Parallel down to just Regretful now. This will be big news for the other two in the top three here if this squad gets wiped out this early on, as that'll be a massive window of opportunity for them to sneak back in and potentially eclipse Parallel's current scoreline. Parallel knows that they're in a hot scenario here. Regretful knows he needs to back away from it, but still trying to commit to the fight to the best of his own capabilities and dealing a heck of a lot of damage in the process. Up in the air. Does he get the shield off in time? Indeed, it looks like he will, just barely as well. A little bit more damage sneaking off to him in the process, but as well, while he was popping off that battery, his opponent's sneaking off their own shield, so he's basically just reset that fight. Still not resetting his own health as well. Needs to scurry away to get the med kit off, and it looks like the opposing squad is going to allow him to do this, mainly because they don't really have a choice. They're looking like they're only a 2, and there is a third party coming in to sweep up on this situation.
This has gotten to be very messy for everybody involved. And hey, Caustic, I see you. Trying to make a push into Caustic. That's what's going to happen. Even going to be able to take down Parallel. So, Parallel in some trouble. That does mean the fact that the leaderboard is now going to open up. MoFam on the look for more kills right now as they're trying to make their way out of this one. Even bringing in some fun. And Sakura, I see what you're playing right now. I see you bringing the distraction. The problem with it is, I also see you don't have a lot of health, so going to have to retreat away from it.
Prez specifically being brought down as the sliver of his own HP needs to escape this scenario, and thankfully is allowed to do so. This is where the Caustic Barrels again come out to help in a pretty big way, as it prevents the immediate follow-through. What we will see, though, on the follow-through is the down. No way to hard block this door as well. The barrels, the only thing they have to hold back the potential play, and they're immediately going to pop these. They know that pressure's coming in, and it's coming in fast here. Reaper King down for a second time, just when he even brought back up. Nades are starting to be flooded in through the open door as well. It's a little bit of the elevator game here as the door continues to open and shut. Players on MoFam want to delay this for as long as possible, but at the same time, they don't want to lay it too far because then they lose the benefit of the barrels. Sakura has been allowed to fall back there on the Mirage, more than likely going to successfully get off the Phoenix kit. Thankfully, it appears as well. Our other team is just going to be backing away from this one. The circle is coming. The situation is too hot. MoFam will be able to survive from the looks of things.
I like that. Coming out from Snows, really just kind of stepping around. They got the knock in. Just go ahead, finish out, get the flush, get the KP, deny the chance to like rebuild or reset, and then move away yourself. Parallel now actually looks like they've managed to reset and feeling pretty good. They've got 2 members up, just a little something, even sitting on sitting on blue right now. Well, the ammo is not necessarily in the best of positions, and they're still capable of fighting, and I would say a much better spot than I was going to be expecting them to be in.
Yeah, I mean, not the worst guns either. I mean, like, it is like a Hemlock and a Vault, so it's not the best guns at the same time, but you can certainly fight, especially at this level with these types of guns. I'd be curious to see what Tech has also, just to kind of get a scope as far as how things are looking, but they're definitely back into it here now. Nicely done from Regretful, as he was the lone rat that was able to escape that previous scenario, played the fight pretty much perfectly as well to make that other squad realize, like, yeah, we can't take this player down easily, and we've got a third party bearing down on this, so he was allowed to escape that situation. Nicely played for them to escape MoFam. and get themselves back into it, as once again they are right back into contention for this one. Milkbirds, meanwhile, not long for the game. They're going to go out in 15th place there, as you can see on our kill feed. And MoFam still trying to work their way back into the circle now with the 2 they have. We'll see if there's going to be an opportunity, unless he found here as well, to catch a fresh purple shield on the ground to potentially get that 3rd player back in play.
So they're moving ahead. They need to be careful. There is just the reset parallel that's going to be in front of them that might look for some vengeance. B&B also bumped into some fun of their own. You can see the fact that they did lose ADMP inside of all the firefights. But this is... I feel like this is just going to be kind of what was happening inside of the circle. With the amount of choke points and how difficult pathing was going to be, it was going to lead into a lot of teams, even strong, really well-connected teams, coming in weaker and kind of, I guess, vulnerable situation. Doja, though, I do want to point out, along the edge, sitting at 4 kills just on June, so continuing the strategy of kill early and maybe make it in the late game.
Yeah, I mean, like we were talking about before with them, like, they're really a contender here. They can absolutely fight, no problems, whatever. They just haven't been able to make it in for the first 2 games for whatever reason that was, whether it was their own position was too aggressive and they got clipped out because of that, or maybe, once again, they finally took a fight that they just realistically couldn't win and dropped it. Something has been preventing them from bleeding into our high placements, so we'll have to pay closer attention to them when they get into their next fight to see what exactly that might have been, or hopefully better yet, we don't need to do that, and they just end up making it through this time. Potentially put some more points on the board, add a 4th contender to our list of potential champions when we get to the end of our 5 games for today.
The North is starting to get to be a problem in and of itself. You can see Regretful and his team moving in, as MoFam also going to get spotted out over here to the northwest. It's going to make it more problematic for them. They're going to have to continue to try to make a much more awkward rotation around this area, so I think that they should be able to get by most of it. The issue is going to come into play is once they start getting closer, it's just going to be a stack of teams in front of them. Dynasty and B&B do manage to limp in there, but also Regretful and their team have managed to get into a better position to where that they might be able to hold up and get into a better firefighting spot for all of Parallel.
Gotta appreciate that Chad Mirage ult we just saw right there to get them out of that tough situation. Nicely done. What's another legend you're gonna see that on? Well, you're not. So Mirage clearly showing some viability here inside of our tournament for today. That's working out quite well. Doja continuing to look for their own capability to impact, of course, making it towards the west side of this circle now. There is a single rat coming in behind them on their flank, and actually, no, I'll correct, there's 2 of them. Shiesty coming in from the south as well. But yeah, here we got the big clump of players grouping up here now at the river's apex over here towards Launchpad as everybody tries to group up for control over this high ground here. It's going to turn into a big fight as well. We got players swinging by. They don't even want any part of this more than likely. They're just trying to stay in the area. It's Theater 3 down below trying to jump onto a whole nother team, and they've already been able to down. It's the Chickens, Golden Reaper, the first to fall this time, but unfortunately not going to be the last to fall as they just get pushed into a corner and they are never allowed out of it.
That drone hit so many people. Parallel still trying to defend up over here. You can see Tech is going to go down yet again. Regretful still holding down an area. Just a little something, realizing the fact that there's just a little somethings around them as they are just covered in people right now and have to play this oh so carefully. Spray is going out inside the zone, but it's going to be the shields that come up, but that zone is ticking and barely gets around the ring. So just a little something in the nick of time finding safety, but they're not done yet. There's still 4 more teams within just a few meters.
Yeah, 1 more, he would have been done right there. So good thing again, Parallel showing masterful control over 10 situations. That's how they were able to carve their way into an absolutely dominant victory in game 1. I was probably explaining how they get into situations like that as well. The fighting not done just yet, as you can see on the outskirts. We have at least, I think that was a Rolling Thunder going off just in the distance over there. Luzaku, potentially the one that threw that very same Thunder out, now inside of the Bangalore smoke, trying to survive with the red shields. I can't see any teammates, though, so for the time being, going to assume that that player is alone, but more than likely working with teammates here. We'll try to catch up with them in a few moments as we're back on board with the Outsiders once again, using the Rampart here on the minigun, just unloading shots into this big fight going on in the distance.
I mean, there's a ton of teams up there, so just being prepped and ready to go. This is a pretty defendable location, and it's just going to be, like I said, about 4 teams that are going to have to walk into this pathing, and that's going to be a rough life to live whenever they're going to come in weak and limping into a circle and then just have a minigun to the face.
The only problem is going to be the control of the spray at this range. As you can see there, we only got like 1 or 2 actual damage ticks, and we were on the Rampart's POV, so fortunate
intimidation.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate ending that build-up as far as we're concerned. Parallel, in the meanwhile, have now been reduced down to just a single straggler. Just a little something in more ways than one here at the moment here, as he's all they got left inside of this game now. He'll swing himself forward. Looks like out of the hot zone, too, as we had another squad coming in from the north end of the circle that you can now see on the screen that allowed just a little something to move over to the northeastern edge of this circle, where he is next to another grouping of 2 players. They've just spotted him out, so that's going to force him back. Potentially not going to see him be able to stay alive that much longer, as he is slowly being pushed into a pinch, but at the same time, this pinch may become the final battle if every team wants to jump into this one. Another Rats on the outside over by the southwest part of this trying to sneak in as well. That'll be Shiesty, who's managed to push his team this far into the game.
We got Captain Kush and Sergeant Kush, I guess, living the cushy life over there to the east, as they did get separation away from Little Something just a moment ago, who still has himself a lot of friends, and that's going to be B1. Very close, just on the opposite rock away from them. You can see that a lot of the solos have managed to sneak in, as remember our good friend at the very beginning that lost the first 2 players in the game. He's still alive. He's hiding over there next to Soccer and Winner, and I don't think that he's been spotted yet, so this has been a great job on at least buying placement points for him.
You can see B1 spotted just a little something sneaking by a second ago. They don't have feel adventurous enough to necessarily go for it, though. Aim assist also being knocked out there once again in our 7th place finish, just due to LSC Unknown, who was also another single straggler. He's been found out. And with his death, that obviously eliminates the rest of the team. Turbocharger picked up there as well onto Carnage for his Havocs. That's going to give him a nice little firepower boost when we get into the next engagement. This team has great control over a building that has Overwatch down below as well. And they're also still going to be sitting here trying to use the minigun. This time we're seeing the shots connected. Oh no! Imagine being just a little something. Waits all that time for an open window to rotate, goes out into the open, only to die to a Rampart SMG, or rather an LMG.
It's going to get stronger as it goes. The problem with it is the fact that I don't think it's inside the next circle, so B1 continuing their push down into this one has managed to spot out more threats in front of them, and it's going to be Soccer and Winner and the rest of their team who have been in the thick of so many firefights for so long now, as really it's just the 2 Cushes over there trying to hold it together. It's going to be Outsiders. They're just rolling in. Yeah, they were outside the zone, but they're coming in slow, steady, and methodical.
Trying to set this gun up once again. Outsiders actually, again, finding a surprising amount of use from this gun right now. You would normally expect this player to have been picked off like 30 times over, but they've been pretty smart, to be fair, about where they've actually been using this one. Nicely played out. We'll have to see how it becomes useful for the final few moments of this game, as we are now into the final 4 and closing in on our second to last circle now. The next one just closes it up all the way, so Outsiders finally being forced to move into the fray. Going to try to set up these Rampart shields, but as you're seeing, a lot of their players taking nade damage at the moment. That's going to leave them relatively weak if the other team wants to push it against them, and we are indeed seeing that. All 3 of the other squads beginning to close in. G-Collector's down to just Shiesty as well. This is the Rat that was able to sneak his way all the way forward and now has such good positioning to play this one out, assuming he doesn't get spotted out by a Seer or that as well. The Sonar coming back in from the Bloodhound. That will unfortunately lead to an early death for him, putting us now into the final 3. Most of these squads do have their full 3-player lineups. One of them is down to 2, however.
And now we see the potential strength of what Outsiders is going to try to do here. This is a defensive squad, adding in with the crypto as well, so you do not want to push into this area. They're just going to get control over what should be kind of an unplayable spot. With all the defenses that they managed to line over here, they've got their backs up against the wall, but they're also drawing a lot of tension, and that's going to be B1 that we saw back over into the west, but they just keep bouncing between this. We are also, Blue, going to finally get ourselves a new winner that's going to try to potentially creep up the leaderboard, as our top 3 teams that are still alive at this stage are all in the hunt for any points, and see if maybe they can sneak into that top 5.
So much build up there for Vilux. Unfortunately, just barely misses the shot at the end of the day. Now has pretty much lost all of their shields themselves, so Vilux forced back, has to go for the full revive in regards to that. Carnage still trying to unleash hell from behind the Rampart barricades. We're seeing the kind of double-edged sword of picking up these defensive legends like Rampart, is that yes, if they were on the inside of a building right now, these shields would be doing absolute work for them, but the fact that they have to put them outside in the open has made this incredibly delicate, as you saw from that little skirmish they took up on top of the rock side. All those barricades going down pretty much the second they had been deployed, leaving themselves still very exposed at the end of the day, and that's oftentimes the negative we see from Rampart. But you gotta give props to Outsiders for making this work as well as they have, and here comes that LMG again. Let's see what it can do.
It's better than nothing, because they would have had nothing over here, so they're at least managing to survive. Now they've got to move in, and everybody is headed after the 2 Cushes. Sergeant Kush and Captain Kush are going to find themselves in some trouble. That gun's going to start unloading, just trying to find anything that brings up some type of hit marker, some type of awareness of what's going to be happening altogether. Now we're just in 2 lined up, and it's just going to be unloading bullets, but he's going to go down. Outsiders now losing 1. B1 in some trouble, but still doing a great job on holding it together. They've got all the vision. B1 is number 1 in this round.
B1 with the Mastiff Diff making up inside of that fight right there, closing in the range, and from that point forward, it is pretty much done. So much damage coming out from that supply crate weapon that you're not going to be able to contend against it, even with the power, of course, of the Rampart LMG. Just wasn't enough at the end of the day, losing far too much HP far too quickly, and did not have any way to detach that fight from itself so they could try to go for a reset. Excellently played out here as they shut it down and give ourselves another new winner at the tail end of game number 4. I think you're muted again, Matt.
There we go. Sorry about that. Wire came loose
good.
there a little bit. I got too excited inside that last game. But whenever we're looking at it, I mean, that's, again, seeing the benefits of Bloodhound. We were talking about the fact, not the most common pick, but there at the end game, has some strength to it, all considered. But when we're looking at it now, I got to say, who impressed me the most, oddly enough, is Shiesty. How did he survive to that stage? To get into, I think it was, what, the top 4, top 5?
Yeah, top 4, I'm pretty sure, is where he finally went down. And he only went down because he got scanned as well. If he didn't get scanned, there's probably a pretty good chance he potentially sneaks through into 3rd place there, because he was being pretty sneaky. Like I said, sitting right under a full squad directly above him by that rock as well. That's when he finally bit off a little bit more aggression than he could potentially chew, just with regards to his positioning here. But still, like you said, impressive that he was able to make it that far. For me, it's Outsiders, clearly. Not just because of the comp they're running as well, and it's fun to see something a little bit different here, but because of how well they're able to make it work. I think looking at one player's one, but they had at least 7 KPs in this game, so they're going to be making some massive gains. Even though they didn't place top 1 for this one, still managed to finish in 2nd, if I remember correctly, so that's going to translate into some really serious points on some of the KPs they picked up.
Well, also, they're the ones bringing out that car strategy very early, making sure that they go after vehicles so that way they can rotate easy around whatever's coming. We've seen them venture out into the ocean to use that as a rotation path. So, as you mentioned, living up to their name as bringing out an outside form of meta and gunplay, in addition to just being outside the zone on a regular basis.
Here we can see it again. They were up to at least 8 as they made the final push, so should be looking nice and healthy in terms of trying to contend now for the top 4. It's looking really competitive here in NA, man. We have a lot of teams that can very easily end up in 1st place before the day is over, and it's not easy to predict right now who is potentially going to actually end up on the top of that heap. It's really anyone's guess among 6 or 7 different teams right now.
Yeah, and I got to give respect to B1. We saw that they were involved in some early fights. The very first thing we saw in this highlight package was them losing one of their members, but they managed to reset, managed to make it into the end, and you can see, managed to pick it up whenever it mattered. They were in a disadvantaged position for quite a while, but still managed to come in with 10 kills at the end of the day.
They really had a nice loot spree going on for themselves, too, because I'm just remembering this now, seeing Vilux's name. They're the team that had a Kraber that we checked in on at one point. So they not only had the Mastiff for that final fight, but they had the Kraber for everything leading up to it as well. Pretty much had the loot pool in their hands to try and secure that one. Very nice finds from B1 over the course of the game, and obviously no problem whatsoever translating that. The Caustic coming out on top of this one. Very non-traditional composition. We're seeing a lot of that bleed through here today, as all 3 of these are somewhat quote-unquote out of the meta. You could kind of make an argument for Caustic at the moment, and obviously Bloodhound to an extent, but even the Loba is a little bit of a far reach. Nicely done from this squad to make it work with what they brought.
I'll say you're not going to see that composition that we saw of in-game, I guess, legends in a very common in-game circle on a regular basis. Because we saw a lot of variance in pick coming into that one, but the real question I think that everybody has is how has this impacted the leaderboard? A couple of teams that have had a good streak did go out early, and is it going to be enough to change up stuff at the top of it, as Parallel, Fake Preds, and B1 have all been our winners today? But overall, where are we headed?
Let's find out. Like we said, it's anyone's guess right now. It's still Parallel on top of the fray at the moment here, just because of the high placements that they've been able to consistently push themselves towards. They have lost their 1st place position inside of Elims, and it's really no surprise in terms of who has it at this point. Doja, now in 3rd place, almost entirely off of their kills alone. They have managed to get 26 kills, so I think that's 7 or 8 more just from the last game alone, on top of the 15 that they picked up in the 1st game there. Only 5 placement points for Doja, but even with that, they are still in 3rd place. B&B now in 2nd with 33, Fake Preds in 4th, Outsiders just below them at 26, B1 a single point behind at 25, even CCS still pretty competitive inside of this one here in 7th with 21 points, so it is really anyone's game at the moment.
I got to bring up some math for just a second. Okay, so Doja has 5 placement points by game 3. They're averaging less than 2 points per game in placement points, but are overall in 3rd place.
Yep.
Because their average in kills is so ridiculously high. Wherever they are dropping is wherever the fun is going to be at, and I gotta give respect to Parallel. I thought that they went out too early, but it looks like they did manage to string together enough of successes moving into that stage that they still hold on to first.
And a pretty comfortable first. Again, kind of surprised by just how far ahead they are here in this situation as well, by about 15 points over B&B at this point. And it's a tight field from like 2nd to 7th. We're looking at like just over a 10-point difference from those 5 or 6 different positions there. So really, really tight. But Parallel, like I said, kind of surprised that they've been able to stay as far ahead as they have been. So that's going to give them a little bit of a sigh of relief, I think, heading into some of our final games.
See our heroes and chi collectors over there. I see you. Shiesty, managing to get your team up into 12th. Now, issue is, whenever they're leaning into a drop spot that is just essentially gate kept off the start, right? If you go down into that fish area down in the southeastern area, then suddenly you're going to have 2 teams in front of you the whole way. It's going to make it very, very difficult. So going to see if they make any modifications out of that. Moving into game number 4 is, I don't know what I want to see going into game number 4, Blue. It's been everything. Now I finally saw my caustic barrels. I'm content. But now we've also seen Loba, we've seen Mirage. I don't know what else is left to want other than just some big games again.
I want to see Parallel mess up. That's what I'm waiting to see here, because then that makes things even crazier past that first place position. They have, like we said, been pretty much flawless, aside from the fact of them getting tripped up in some of these late game fights, which, you know, it's kind of Apex. What are you going to be able to do about that past a certain point? They've been pretty good at controlling it. Like we said, constantly surprised by the number of points they were able to get on a game-to-game basis to keep this lead going. At some point, though, you'd expect them to potentially get unlucky and get knocked out relatively early, and then that really opens the field from that point forward for 2nd to 7th place to potentially ascend over the next game or so and take it away. Just 2 games left, so 2 more opportunities for that to happen. Need to wait and see, because if not, they're more than likely going to be able to stay on track and keep that first place position under their control. We'll have to see if any of their teams are going to be able to really pop off and get that massive point boost to like a 15 or 16 kill game that will necessitate them coming back into it and potentially competing for that first place position.
I do want to point out also we've been seeing B&B as well as Fake Preds. I think they've been dropping kind of close to each other and been along these similar pathings. So it's been harder for them to stack up the same amount of kills because they're kind of eating each other's kills as they come into this, while they are coming in usually one more northwestern and the other one kind of, I guess, midwestern as they make their approach into these mid circles. It still does mean the fact that they're splitting a lot of kills between them. And while they are getting good drops and they are getting looted, that kind of creates its own problem whenever you're trying to catch up to Parallel.
Absolutely going to be the case. Away from that, though, once again, just waiting on a few more teams to be joining up. And even outside of, obviously, the top 7 we've seen play out, we still had quite a few contenders showing up to the table that are still sitting around like 10th or 11th place. It's definitely seeming like they're able to kind of keep up inside of the fights themselves. Chi Collectors being one of them that I mentioned before, as well as seeing the Chickens get themselves pretty deep. But unfortunately, finding themselves with just lackluster positioning more than anything else. So those teams are kind of struggling to push themselves to that real deep point in the game where they could pick up a whole spree of kills. Need to be a little bit more active with their movement, maybe, or something else is going wrong that's preventing them from moving, getting tripped up from a previous fight. Those teams as well still straggling for points and still could very easily end up in our like top 7 run at this point in terms of actually trying to compete for like top 3 finish to be in the money, so to speak. That dream is probably dead, but we could still very much see them push up here over the next few games and end up competing with the mid pack.
Well, that's the whole benefit right now, right? Is it sucks because you can't get any points because there's like 3 to 4 teams, let's just say 5-ish, that are eating all of the points inside the game. But that means that everybody else is kind of working with scraps, and that leaderboard is very, very compacted. One squad wipe can usually jump you up about 4 placement points, or even just managing to make it into the end game can manage to make you compete up and maybe get around that 6th to 8th position. So one good game is all any of those other teams need to try to strive up. And while they might not be in the cash zones, they will make it into the qualification zones for the final.
Yep, absolutely the case, and that's going to be coming up in just a few weeks, ladies and gentlemen. Be sure to tune in here once again when we get to that one, as there'll be plenty more action. We'll be having all of the teams that managed to qualify through this one and all of our previous brackets that we've done over the last few weeks. They'll be fighting it out for the obviously bigger prize pool there, and obviously much more glory to come from the Master Circuit Finals as well.
And I will remind everybody, you see some things that are going on down there. If you're enjoying this, remember that there is a ton of PlayStation events that are going on at the time, and make sure that you tune in. If you want to participate inside of them, there's plenty of ways that you can do that by going over to compete.playstation.com, so that way you can get some opportunities for yourself, get a chance to be casted, maybe make a name for yourself. It could be your path to start your esports legacy, or at least just find some friends to play some games with.
Yeah, definitely the case. We've had a lot of fun here today. We got definitely a few players in this lobby as well that are trying things out for the first time and finding themselves obviously a little bit overwhelmed to an extent, but also having a bit of fun inside of these matchups. So go ahead, join up with them, see if you can potentially push yourself into one of these top placements, and maybe you can be qualifying for a big money event in a few weeks or a few months' time. Enough of that though, folks. It looks like we are just about ready to go for our 4th drop of the day. Just 2 to go, 2 final chances as a team to make your impact here, and all of our teams are really going to need it. It is a close field. Nothing is decided as of yet, so let's see who will be able to push themselves to the top yet again.
It's one of those moments. Whenever opportunity knocks, what can you do with it? Because the fact that Parallel, who have been putting up a phenomenal set of games, we did see that there is a chance that maybe you can find a way to make it work. We did see them go down early, but they still managed to get a lot of kills through the process of it. And I put early in quotation marks because some of these teams wish they could make it out at the stage that we did see them go out at. Now, really, it's all about modification at this stage. That's always the nature of the beast whenever you're looking at Apex. The change-ups in Legends, the change-ups in drops, even timing out your rotation, just looting 5 seconds faster can get you past a set of firefights and a choke point that would you not normally expect. So we'll have to see who can make those changes and who can react the fastest, because it's all about trying to build that up in Apex.
So we got Legend Select up on the screen one more time. We will see, of course, if there's going to be any major departure for any of these teams. Chicken's now picking up the Rampart that we saw used, of course, by the Outsiders on their previous games. Unsure if they were doing that previously. I just noticed it myself now. It could just be a coincidence. The Caustic as well seems to be spreading once again here, as we're still looking at 3 of them in the load-ups.
Your face is blocking out Outsiders. I want to see if they're bringing him back. What are they bringing out? I don't know. Now it's just going to be a pleasant surprise.
They had a Crypto, actually. I saw it just out of the corner of my eye before it went away.
I think that they ran that one last time. That was their kind of scout for their full-on defense with Watson, I believe.
Okay, cool. Let's get into it and see how they're potentially going to be able to use that once again. As the drops are live, of course. Time to see if we're going to have any contestation go on from these initial fly-ins. But like we said, ever since the last game, mainly, things have kind of calmed down a little bit. We're not seeing a whole lot of teams landing directly on top of each other anymore, as it seems the POIs have been sorted out for the most part now. However, with the field being so close, there is that possibility that one team may want to risk it here and potentially go for some early KPs. So always keep that in the back of your mind. But at the moment, looking like everything is going according to plan down on the map. I say that, but we do see very close positioning between at least 2 of our teams over on the northeast side. I think they're going to have a pretty healthy amount of separation, as that blue squad is still just landing, heading over towards Lightning Rod.
Yeah, again, more edge play. We do see the fact that I think that we've seen a switch up in drops, but really it's about how the lay of the land is going to come from here on out. Circle is going to lean into the north, so those earlier drops heavily rewarded as command center. A center position inside of this one could make for a very interesting endgame.
Definitely will. Middle of the map is going to stay quite barren. Areas like Barometer, for instance, going to be left completely untouched to start things off, so will be a nice loot pull for either team to swing back over there. You've got the possibility of Rip Curl and the rest of his team potentially moving in to steal that away. They go untouched as well, as obviously it's going to be pretty far outside of the circle. This will be a very different circle than the ones we've had for our past few games as well. Going to be drifting way up to the northeast, making it a way more claustrophobic finish, and potentially pretty vertical too, depending on where the circle ends up turning towards, especially if we end up over on the southwestern side of it towards the falls. That could cause some problems for teams rotating in on the south side. All to be figured out in good time, of course, as Doja already well on their way to another kill rampage. Shouldn't really be a surprise to anyone who's seen our previous games, packing up a first kill for themselves within just the first few minutes of the drop.
Okay, Doja, beneficiary yet again of position. We'll have to see how this is going to go. They're going to continue ransacking teams around the map to start, because the Southeast is just going to be on fire, as you know. Early game scrapping, it has been their bread and butter. It's been how they're climbing the leaderboard, and that means the fact that every single person around them is just KP that's going to feed the beast in the continual step in the ladder.
You get to see this as well. The Seer just moving around, holding down the right click, basically looking for any and every opportunity to knock someone else out here. Not going to be able to find it so easily, though. It doesn't really seem like that player was just kind of off on their own, so they're going to be looking for the other two, but nothing to be seen here as that player is just caught off on their lonesome. We'll move away, check in with another team here back over in the cave where we've got Theater 3 looting things up without too much of a contest coming in against them. There is a team nearby, but again, relatively safe distance away, so not going to have to immediately worry about them as they continue to loot things out here.
Much slower approach inside the circle, and that's not the biggest of surprises. With a big shift into the north and to the center of this means the fact that it does create some more options for, I guess, safer rotation. I do also want to point out Shiesty and his team did move into the north instead of dropping down to the south. That was going to be a problem for them. MB High Tribe were the ones that kind of, I guess, had the problem this time around. We saw them make it into the later stage, but Nugget's going to go down as well as Major, leaving just good old Captain Kush, the last one up. And every single time I say that, it makes me want Captain Crunch.
So Captain Kush will wait for an opportunity now to see if he can revive his teammates. Does actually have a beacon that you can see the light from just in front of him here, more than likely, with opponents on top of that. Doja, in the meanwhile, is moving in to try and quickly mop up shop here on the armory. More than anything, this is going to give them a nice little boost to their Evo shields. Hopefully give them a bit of an early progression up towards purple, or in June's case, the red. Away from that, maybe a nice little attachment boost and whatnot here. More than likely already working with the weapons that they would like, but still plenty to be gained on the inside of the crates. That'll be sliding out from the walls in just a second when they wrap up the event here.
Yep, just trying to make sure to rack up some more. You gotta have all the ammo in the world if you're going to be moving in to get as many kills as possible, right? So getting all the things set up to move in. This, if they can kill players, I guess you can kill bots as well. I mean, it's one of those things. I guess if you can dodge a car, you can dodge a ball, one of those kind of situations.
Yep, pretty much the case. There we go. Both players upgraded to purple now. We are going to see the circle close in on them in the meanwhile, but this shouldn't be too much of an immediate threat. They don't have anybody on top of them. And even past that, too, they've got the free jump pad to get themselves away from the situation if somebody wanted to sneak in, potentially steal this way. It actually looks like June is not even on the inside of it with them as well, so a bit of an interesting strategy. They just have the two players on the inside mop up shop while they clean things up real quick. Fake Preds is in a different armory, should mind you, in case you're getting confused right now. This is another team in a different part of the map as they continue to clean up here and try to fulfill pretty much the same goal as the other team we just watched. Extra points for the Evo shield and maybe a few upgrades to their attachments once they finish the event.
Yep, and it's just kind of the nature whenever we're looking through to give you guys an update on the circle. Not a lot too crazy happening. There's just the situation that we've got that's kind of brewing over there in the east, but that's about it. Whenever we look at everything, most of our teams have managed to find pathing early. I do want to say that Tech, Just Something, the rest of their team have managed to get inside the circle just to the southwest of Command Center very, very quickly, which could be a very strong position. With the way that the circle has leaned north, Stormcatcher and Command Center are going to be kind of in that death funnel. So that means the fact that we have about 4 teams that could be pathing along this area, as you do see one of our solos kind of holding out down in this position as well, means the fact that a lot of the firefight and what could decide in-game circles is going to be happening in the south.
Axolotl able to get themselves at least a free pick by finding that player hiding out in the corner. Still some threat coming out against them, though, as we have at least a few other players on the inside of this building. Not much beyond that, however, as they continue to hunt these players out. And there we go. It's the end of MoFam. They'll be one of the first squads to be knocked out this time around. Being found out here in the middle of this POI. Things continuing to go well for Axolotl. Is there another one of those teams that I was talking about towards the beginning of this game? We've got a lot of kind of midfielders at the moment that have been able to win out a few fights, have shown themselves to have the capabilities to outlast, but just unfortunately ended up on the losing end of it relatively early on. Speaking of the losing end of things, Doja potentially about to end their run, already with 3 KPs, mind you, so still going to be improving the kill record as they try to maintain their 3rd place positioning, but this has been their core issue all day today. It's just an inability to make it to the late game, to capitalize on those placement points. And once again, we're looking at something similar. June, as well as one of his teammates, still in the fight, but the 3rd one has gone down outright.
I don't even know if you can say, like, live by the sword, die by the sword in this situation. They're not leaving. They've got the aim. You can see June just opens that back up. Going to run over here, pick up the banner because ready. The expectation is to fight more, not fight less, as they're now just, okay, we've got the banner. Time to chase the person I just cracked. I love it. This is so good.
Revive beacon coming down there. Luzaku pretty close to dead, though. They might not actually be able to get this beacon used properly, depending on how they're doing with regards to heal mats here. Doja, I believe they have cleared things out. Medkit available for June, so he's doing all right. Milk Bro is going to end up getting themselves eliminated, though, as they were down to just a single straggler early on, and it looks like someone else potentially going to be jumping onto Doja here now. June Burton getting himself into a fray, but he's able to fend it off. Just the last straggler from OG. Robin being the last one left in the fight this time. Seems like they were kind of waiting for that to an extent as well. There was a lot of delay on using the revive beacon. Now not so much, since they've cleared things out against OG and taken down the last contender here. B&B waiting for things to open up on the inside of this one, but we do have the jump pad. However, this time, as you can see, the Horizon Q is going to be used to get these players up. They did not want to go for the full redeploy. That's a mistake that's going to very easily cost them their run in this game.
That was absolutely nasty, Dynasty. He lined up 2 of them as they were jumping out. So Chicken and Golden Reaper both going to go down. I think that it's just going to give them more fuel for the fire and continuing their pathing. The new circle has popped, and it looks like it's going to lean more east from the last one. So means the fact that all of our low ground positioning that we're going to be looking at is all going to become an uphill battle, as it's just going to be a continued path to the northeast.
Fake Preds so far have been doing well inside of this game. As you can see, just on routes POV, 3 KPs so far between himself. Can expect potentially 1 to 2 more to be on his teammates. And indeed, 1 more for him as well here, getting another down in against Raptor, which will more than likely lead to his outright elimination. No reason to delay on that kill pickup. Just a straggler for the time being. We'll have to wait and see if there is a third and potentially a second player still up and running from his squad. Fake Preds just doing a nice job of catching that player off before they can escape.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be what you got to pull out here, is with the verticality that comes into play, exploit it. Chase down. This is one of the capabilities that this map allows, is you can snowball so efficiently because the map just kind of feeds the capability of it. If you start off well, you can just continue that momentum and carry it forward time and time again into the next firefight, as now you start to have a lot of funnel positions that really just allow you to keep control over those fights while still getting more and more loot and just players delivering it to you.
Be catching a player going for a redeploy, that's more than likely the remnants of the other squad fight we were just watching right there. They're going to be able to make it out, though, as they get noticed far too late on their escape here. So B&B won't be able to catch them. Struggle from a similar situation with the squad we were just watching a few moments prior. But regardless, the reposition is successful. We got the rest of the teams starting to move in onto this circle area as well. We don't really have any teams skirting the edge at the moment here that are going to be sitting back and waiting things out. Seems like everybody wants to get to this new circle sooner rather than later. And that is going to force some potential early fights out here, especially over on the southern end, as there will be limited spacing for these teams to grab. In fact, it's looking like potentially one of them is going to ignite right now, as we have B&B trying to close in from the west side. They'll have a few squads sitting in front of them to make it there, but they're not the focus. Like we said, down towards the southwest side is where we're seeing Crown King's team, as well as Tech up on top from Parallel, could potentially get challenged here if either squad wants to jump into the fray.
Really what we need to note is the canyons just north of Command Center and the cave pattern that follows. So that's going to allow some form of safety for some of these teams, but it's not going to quite make it as safe as they're feeling like it's going to be. We're going to see a firefight probably break out there in just a few minutes, depending on how the lay of the land comes in. So it's also going to provide a much safer pathing through I guess, a center position, and that's going to allow teams to try to exploit that. Teams like Parallel, who are playing down in the south right now, can play the opposite side of that canyon and really continue to mop up and pick up all of the weakened teams that are still having to play out in the open around it.
You can see Regretful had gone down below to attempt to cut off one of the players they were chasing. It ends up turning back against Regretful as he ends up in an outnumbered fight. Will lose himself outright just a few seconds after that. Looks like there was a down coming in from Regretful there onto one of these 2 players. They'll see it, of course, as they work their way down. Trying to figure out where the third is, though. That was the big problem for them, and they may not be able to solve it. June jumps in, knocks out our player, and the last one going down as well. Nicely done, as Parallel will be fully eliminated here by June. The sneaky play. It was even read by Parallel. They knew it was coming, but despite the fact June ends up on the top of the heap there, very beautifully played out, and is going to eliminate one of our top contenders. It's just being chased out here, as now we've got B&B looking for a whole heap of kills. Already up to 5 assists on the horizon, so you can expect a bit more than that for the team's overall kill count. It was Doja that wins this very important fight versus Parallel and continues to soar. Finally, again, with a good placement showing up here inside of the top 10. We'll have to see if they can go any further than that, as their aggressive tendencies have tended to cost them earlier deaths than they would like.
I don't know. I don't know if I can call it out anymore because they've managed to get their player back up that they lost earlier. They're managing to find the kills as they move through. Theater 3, on the other hand, is in the far east, and you can see they're just going to get rampaged on as they are going to have High Tribe just roll into this area. The circle, yet again, unsurprisingly, went to the east, so that means the fact that we're going to see that continued push into location. Up in the north of it, you can see B&B making their pathing in now, but with Lightning Rod and really that hill and that, I guess, that cliff that's going to be right in the middle, just to the northeast of Watch, there's a lot of dynamic that can come inside of this firefights. As the center is kind of already claimed by a site block. And that means that a lot of these firefights that usually end up being third, fourth, fifth partied now might be far more contained.
Immediate Cyril coming in there as we see our squad jump into the next fight. She Collectors and Axolotl end up going down to bring us down to a count of 7 squads remaining. Doja well into another fight here, really going to try to make this their game as they're already up to 8 KPs just on June alone, about to make it 9 very likely as well here with a down going into Violux. High Tribe knocked out as of a few seconds prior to bring us down to 6. Doja realizes that that fray is all but finished, so they back away from the situation, happy with the kills they pick up for themselves and looking for another new target. Obviously on the run right now, though, as the circle close to closing in against them. They do have quite a bit of distance to cover to get to the inside of it. Vertical climb as well, so this could be where things finally get a little bit more difficult. As you can see, sitting in front of them, still a couple hundred meters out, but still, eventually in front of them, they will have to contend against more squads, which will be primed and ready to hold on. And now, as you can see, they've got the rest of the squad they were just fighting against also on their back flank, trying to close in on their position.
But they have control. There was nobody in the watch up above this one, so now it's just a matter of holding the high ground, defending it up, taking the information that Lezku is providing to them, and yeah, it's going to open up more and more sight lines and just continue to feed the beast and the kills that is Doja right now, because they're walking into an openly controlled area. And there you go, B1 now down. That was our last team that won a round, and Doja now finding their way into 5 squads left. Placement points for Doja while they still have red and purple shields. This is going to be a problem for other teams.
Yeah, they're already getting a massive number of points just off of what they've achieved alone, and it's realistically looking like they're going to be able to go much, much further than they already have done. They are on a conquest right now, moving forward, finding another squad mid-fight. They forced the Valcold out from the squad they just jumped on, so once again, clearing out the house down here. It's really just them deciding when these fights are ready to be taken, still continue to move in. They're going to move towards, realistically, what will be our final battleground, over towards areas like where the fake Preds are holding on to, alongside other teams like Parallel as well. Dynasty, for instance, moving himself out into the open. He's going to begin the contest against this push, coming back in now. We'll have to wait and see if he can actually survive that encounter. Obviously, he bites off a little bit too much from what was going to potentially be a 1v3 had he fully engaged onto that. The fake Preds now realize there's pressure on their vertical angles. They also move out from their previous buildings. It wasn't going to be safe when the circle closed in, so they take up new positioning across the zip wire instead.
This is such a good position. You can see the defensive lay that it's got around it, in addition to the fact that now they can also gatekeep out CCS that's looking like they're wanting to come along this path. And while this is going on, B&B has at least gotten into a slight skirmish with what we saw coming out from Doja on a different angle. So that means that we're seeing 2 independently contained firefights right now, depending on how this goes. As B&B finally does step away from their southern opponent in Doja and is now looking to CCS Joker and the rest of his team that are going to be to the east. This means the fact that that early move coming out just a second ago, crossing the rope and getting into that gatekeeping spot, is going to pay off big for Daniel and the rest of his squad.
Maybe not able to land the cracking shots that would have allowed them to ignite into this next fight. They are going to, of course, be wary of the squad coming in from up on top, but they've also got to watch out, of course, for the flank side. They see that potential pressure coming back in. It looks like the squad that was going to be flirting with that has rotated back around into a new position. So they're going to be coming in from the south side, or southeast side, I should say, instead here. Will eventually lead them to jump on top of fake Preds, but in a different way than they may have been expecting here, as now we're going to see their team be able to get that most recent down, bring us down to our top 5 here, as again, they spot out more, but they don't expect it. Never mind. They didn't expect to see them coming in from this angle. Thought they were going to hold back, play it passively. The fake Preds, they've been overwhelmed. There's absolutely no way for Wako to hold on here, and I would argue it's going to be the same for his only other teammate now. But at the same time, we see Dynasty. He moves into this one as well. B&B want a piece of this fight also. They want to try to move in and third party out Doja, but they don't realize just how easy of a fight that was for Doja. Aim assist now completely finished off with the elimination of LCS straggling on the outskirts. Dynasty thinking twice about the push him and the rest of B&B just made. They'll be holding back, trying to reignite this from a distance.
Fake Pred still has one that's hiding out in the distance, but B&B is now taking control over this northern area. They've got good vision on everything that's going to be going on, but it also means the fact that they're revealed. Doja, though, is just taking dominance in this. I thought it was going to be B&B that had control from this angle, but no. Doja, if you're in their sight lines, they are going to punish you. And now, with the circle leaning into a direction that they can get some control over, that means that they can jump out and harass what's going to be going on with CCS that's just going to be the north of them. And it's become a standoff in the wide open of this one. And if it's just a firefight, I gotta say, don't count out Doja. This is their life, their bread and butter, and they are fiending for this just to become a firefight. The dirtier it gets, the better for them.
It's looking like it's going to be a relatively good finish from, I believe that's OG sitting over on the cliff side, although unfortunately just losing one of their own players. This will retarget the intentions from B&B. They'll head over here to try to finish this off instead. That third player already revived and back in the fight, but regardless, they feel this is a moment of opportunity to try and take out at least one more squad, rack up 3 more kills. As B&B, we've been talking all about Doja this entire game, but it's B&B looking to make some big gains as well. As you can see, almost 10 KPs just sitting on Dynasty right now. They'll finish off Fake Preds, taking them down entirely as it was them holding on to the extremity over here now. Getting ready for the rest of the push, coming back in. Blixky, the first to fall. Luzaku also going to suffer from some heavy damage. It may seem like finally Doja has bitten off too much from the most recent encounter, as they are likely on a path to going down in third place. We'll wait and see if that ends up coming true. We still have, I believe, a rat or potentially a full other third squad inside of this engagement too. One down from B&B. They're not out just yet either. Luzaku now finished out. That should just be one up and running at this point here for the squad coming in from Doja. Dynasty finishing off so many different players, but hasn't gotten that full squad wipe off just yet. CCS is the last remaining team involved in this one. They're sitting with 2, obviously, now holding the high ground over the remnants. Obviously, of Doja sitting just under them.
So much strength from this position right now, and oh my god, being in the smokes when that's going to go off is absolutely terrifying. Trying to get away. Dynasty's done such a great job in spray control. He's just been ripping people apart as they try to get the high ground and try to get away from him, but it's going to be June and ADMP that are kind of working together to try to survive, but CCS, the high ground advantage is too much. The smokes couldn't provide the protection, and the 2 solos go down at the hands of Joker on the high ground.
We're talking all about B&B and Doja. Didn't even notice CCS just quietly sneaking into this cliffside position towards the tail end of the game. They take all the glory at the end of it and all the kills from that final fight as well. CCS making some big gains on their points, and it was absolutely needed as well. They've been sitting down towards the bottom of our top 10, if memory had served me correctly, so this should be a nice boost to push them once again into that 2nd through 7th place bracket, I'm going to assume, where they are able to get a little bit more competitive with our scorelines. Not going to be able to necessarily push themselves up towards first place between now and the next game, but once more inside of the top 10, hopefully safely at this point, which should leave them qualified for our main event in just a few weeks.
CCS was actually held in a gatekeeping position by Fake Preds. So Fake Preds going down in the position that they were trying to hold from is what allowed them to now go in, take a very strong position, and really it's that type of thing. You want to capitalize off of it, and yes, Dynasty, just spray it down. Look at the spray control this guy has. It is just absolutely dirty to try to fight against.
So it's probably one of the least impressive games coming out from Parallel as well, finally meeting their match a little bit earlier on in the game, as we saw right here. Taken out by Doja of all teams as well, so finally seeing a little bit of a crack in their armor. More than likely still with some decent point gains, however, so not going to cost them, I will assume, their first place position yet, but obviously we will wait until we get our leaderboard screen up to determine just how close they are to potentially being eclipsed now.
Looking through, I mean, it was just, I need to know the kill counts, because the way we look at this, there was so many teams racking up high kills. I feel like there was just so few options for other teams other than just to try to sneak into this late game and go for these position points. Because now that we look into it, you can see that after Fake Preds comes down, it's going to be CCS that takes that high ground. And how do you compete around this? There is no vulnerabilities, and it was just trying to dance around and see if maybe you can get some of the scraps that were going on. It's just harassing firefighting. And look at these sightlines. It's just brutal to try to play around.
Yeah, it's so difficult to try to play into anything here towards the tail end of the game. Every position had been claimed and accounted for the most part. CCS, though, with the winning position. And again, the patience always ends up coming out on the top of the heap, it would seem here, as there was another fight going on the inside of that one that eventually contributed to it. You can see here, like I said, CCS just stealing all the glory. Just a single kill on Joker to finish off the actual game. We didn't even see IDG do any damage over the course of that one because he got knocked out sort of towards the beginning of that final fight and then kills him. Only 406 damage as as well. But the results speak for themselves. They are still the ones to pick up the final kill, and as such, they get the full 12 points for ending up in first place. Going to be a little bit of a lack for KPs, obviously, but still should help them to make a nice punch up the scoreboard.
Hey, look, if Doja can play for early game and kills, then that means that you can also run with the strategy of just playing for late game and placement. That's what CCS was after, and while it wasn't the flashiest, the biggest of games as far as kills go, it's going to be a big game for them, as it is going to be able to push them up the leaderboard as they get to join our collection of champions for the day as we have walked through. At the top of it's going to be Parallel, Fake Preds, B1, and CCS. But how does the overall leaderboard now stack up? It has been very distinctive as Doja is now just 2 points behind B&B. Parallel down into third place, 4 points back behind that Fake Preds, and CCS managing to pick up those placement points, sitting in fifth.
That's the real story, with Parallel finally losing their first place grasp they've had for every single game up until this point. The massive gains, really just in kills alone, that were made by B&B and Doja should have easily been 10 plus kills for both of those teams, on top of the high placement that we ended up getting for both of them as well. Rockets them into the lead now, but they're neck and neck there, 57 and 55. So this final game means so much for not only those two, but going down from that point. Parallel still in this and can eclipse if both B&B and Doja mess up on the next game. Fake Preds as well, also within that range. To an extent, CCS also might have a hope of doing it, but we're really stretching it at that point. So at this point, you're looking at those top four realistically to contend for first place in our final game.
I love you, CCS, but it's going to take more than one kill to try to start competing at the top of leaderboard. So are you going to come out gunning or not? Because they have a slight lead over B1. But B1 also has been able to pick up a game. Outsiders just behind that. Let's not forget about them. Aim Assist, High Tribe managed to make it in the end game. And Axolotl finally in the top 10 to round out this side of the leaderboard. As it is just such a decline. I mean, 57 at the top. And then by the time you make it to 10th, 16 points, man. This is, well, we need some Robin Hood action to come in here and take from the rich and pass it back down around those that are really needing it.
Even with that, though, we still have some pretty close contention going on, in my opinion, here. So it's going to make the final game very fun, with all four of the top four here still realistically being able to potentially claim the victory, depending on how that final game goes. Here's, of course, the tail end of it as well. You can see still decent point totals going all the way down to about 14th place, with a chicken sit there with 10 points total. Theater 3 still trying to keep them competitive as well. Same for the Chi Collectors and OG, sitting there in the upper 10s, and it just fades off past that point.
Well, you got what you wanted. You said the fact that you wanted
true.
to see a team go down early so that way the leaderboard gets more compacted. Well, top four compacted the way that you wanted to. And if you think that you can jump in and compete with these guys, it's easy. Just go to compete.playstation.com and you have your opportunity to join in and fight amongst the best that we've got on the PlayStation console. And as I've said many times, and I know you're very aware, if it's not just Apex, there's a ton of other games that you can also jump in and find something to work around or find a community that you want to enjoy and play with. We've got one game left, so therefore we've got to give everybody some time, reset, figure out some new strategies. We've got to also reset mentally moving into this last one. We thought it might be done, but it's not. Top four are going to be duking it out in just a few minutes. Make sure you stay tuned. One game left in Apex Legends Master Circuit Wildcards number 4 for North America, and it has now gotten close. It means the fact that we're in for a very great last game. It has been a battle of late game versus Doja aiming for the early game, and it's just been the violence in between as a lot of teams have just been sandwiched and really just been feeding the beast that is our top 4 teams.
Yep, it's brought it down to 4 teams realistically that should be able to potentially claim first place, and as well are going to be fighting for our in-the-money prize pool here. You can see it in front of you now. B&B on top, but only by 2 points ahead of Doja, who has been rocketing ahead almost entirely off of kills. Look at that, the split between their elims and placement points, 43-12. Then you got Perila, who was in first place until the tail end of our most recent game, where they finally faltered from what was otherwise an incredibly consistent performance from them, leaving them still just behind their second place contender at 48, and then Fake Preds 4 more points behind that at 44. CCS also may have a chance to work their way into this one. We're probably stretching the definition of how many points you can realistically get from one game. They'd have to go absolutely nuclear, and unfortunately we just haven't seen that from them just as of yet. So more than likely going to be contending amongst those top 4.
They got to go nuclear, and the top 4 all have to die, and that doesn't feel like anything that any of those top 4 are going to be leaning into. I just have to say, Doja has 80% of their points off of KP.
Yep.
And is in second place. That is an astounding thing to see, and that is extremely uncommon whenever we look at Battle Royale across all the different variations of it. Really, it's about going for those placement points, and the KP are kind of what give you your lead. They're like, no. Placement points are what's going to give us our lead. It's the kills. We live for the legendary violence that comes inside of it, and it's working. I cannot believe how effectively it's working.
What's arguably is even more impressive too is just how early they've been getting quite a few of those kills. The first game is like the real glaring example of that, where they placed I think 7th or 8th at best based on the points they got, and managed to get 15 kills while it was still that early in the game. I don't know if they're just mopping up while I don't know if they're just mopping up shop while guarding the edge of the circle or something else to get that many. They fell off a little bit in game 2, but then immediately came back into it. And prior to game 4, their average placement was sitting at 9th or 10th, I think, somewhere around there. Obviously, probably improved that stat a little bit with how they were able to perform in the most recent game. And if they have another one like that, it's going to be tough to find another winner inside of this circle. I'll have to wait and see as we are getting ready to go into that final map now.
Yeah, it's all wheels are off. I mean, you just got to fight for whatever you can get here, because with those 4 teams in the hunt, you know Doja's going to fight early. So you can't lean into a safe play at the start, because that's usually what you would want to try to do. You don't play too safe. Don't hide out in the zone or do anything else like that. You still want to be involved. You still want to get KP, but at the same time, you don't want to overextend into a firefight that will cause you to go out before you can even get into placement points. Doja being involved here is its own kind of influence, as teams often just quote unquote play their own game whenever they don't pay attention to the leaderboard. But in a situation like this, you're going to have to be paying attention to it, because this is going to apply pressure in a very abnormal situation.
All right, well, enough waiting, ladies and gentlemen. Let's find out which of those squads will end up on the top of the heap at the end of the day. One more circle to close in on, one more drop for these teams to potentially claim a first-place finish. For those, of course, that are in the top 10 and have safely secured that position, they're already celebrating as they've managed to qualify for our final event in just a few weeks' time. But for those outside of it, there may still be something to be gained as well. Let's see what they can go for here as we'll get one final peek at the Legends Select, see if there's going to be any major departures from normality. For the most part, I think these teams have been sticking with their original picks, haven't been varying things up too much, so I'd expect very much the same heading into this final pick phase.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything standing out. Outsiders still sticking to their peculiar picks, but that's working for them in their own fashions, as we're really just trying to see if there's anything that's outlier. We have seen, unfortunately, the toxicity looks like it's not spreading as far as crypto is. Not crypto, but I'm sorry. My God, I've cast way too many games of this one today. I had my eyes drawn to crypto just due to the way it was set up. But finally, moving into our last game, maybe my brain can calm down.
All right. Let's take a look here to see if we're going to have any more direct challenges, specifically from the teams that are looking to gain points here, such as Doja and whatnot. They may be trying to get aggressive right off the bat, as they've already known that they can thrive in this environment. And we can see they're heading to a POI that, at least until a second ago, we had quite a few other teams trying to collapse upon. It looks like we actually might have a little bit of that. Quite a few teams landing in very much the same area. This is definitely an ego challenge coming in over here on the south side of the map, over towards Gale Station as well. So we're going to have to wait and see what ends up happening there. That's potentially 3 squads landing in the same POI. Definitely definitely want to be paying very close attention to that. Even at Fish Farms, things are a little bit up in the air as we have two teams very close to each other here over on the west side of the map as well, over by, I believe that's Barometer, two other teams landing there. It's going to be a whole heap of fighting to start this one off. Everybody scavenging for points at the very beginning of these games, and for High Tribe, mainly to an extent that may cost them their own life. Kush Nugget's still able to hold on quite nicely, turn things around. He's going to be keeping the pickup on these KPs. He's knocked out another member of this opposing squad, lost one of his own teammates, but I believe they have managed to finish off the rest of their opponent's squad. MoFam, the first to go down this time around.
And here is the problem. This is exactly how Doja feasts. They land down in Fish Farms, and then they spread out. They pick up these kills. Now the Red Sea has parted around Fish Farms, and nobody wants to come hang out with Doja because they realized it doesn't work. And so instead, dropping on top of each other. So teams like, Cheat Collectors, we saw them trying to sneak out earlier by their lonesomes. This time around, they are going to lose some situational problems, but you can see the fact that they've at least managed to dodge Doja, and now can start to creep in and maybe make some different styles of play to try to catch out the High Tribe.
Cheat Collectors did have a player disconnect from the looks of things as well, so a little unfortunate in terms of a start for them. I think that was actually the first elimination we watched when we started to go to our player POVs. That's probably explains why that was such an easy pickup for them to be able to claim. Cheat Collectors will be backing away from that, though, and hopefully getting that third player back once they get the revive. Haiku just has to make sure that obviously doesn't get picked off in the process of looting things up here. We do see that car fading away on the back left side of the screen too, but not too interested in challenging out against the Cheat Collector's current position. Seems like everything is kind of fading away now. Just that one squad, Elam. Everything else has resolved itself, for the time being at least, quite amicably, although we still have that close contention over towards Barometer. Everything else, though, is starting to fade away for the most part.
Jumping in with Fake Preds, you can see the fact that I managed to dodge a lot of that early action and are kind of south of what's going to be going on with everything. They are kind of in that area just north of Shipfall, so they do have our rotating Cheat team going to be moving ahead of them with two, and that duo might be moving too close to Fake Preds, and so while they might have finally managed to dodge out what's going on with Doja, get away from all of that, they might be moving too close, but maybe the shopping experience for Fake Preds might make it safer for them.
Wait, hold out, see what they're able to get from that one. On board with CCS as well. This is the team that we talked about. Like we said, there's kind of 4 teams contending realistically to be top 1 at the end of this one. CCS is like that very much borderline 5th team right now, but they would need so many, like something in the neighborhood of like 15 to 20 kills, which would be almost double their current kill count, by the way, for all 4 games combined, on top of a decent placement, and to some extent relying on the other top 4 teams to probably get eliminated early. So, as you can tell, it's a very long-winded explanation, which means the odds of it actually happening are gargantuanly low, but they are still in the hunt to some extent, so we're going to be following them quite closely in this game.
I've got to point this out. While there is this firefight that's going on, this is going to be very, very impactful for the late game. Remember how nobody's been dropping in the center? Well, guess what? Parallel is in Cascade. Of all teams, they are in the center of this circle in a controlled POI, and that is going to be harsh for everybody else in the hunt.
This could turn into a little bit of a double-edged sword for themselves, as obviously they got the wipe that we just saw them pick up a few seconds ago. Other than that, though, there is no one even close to their current position. So until they are forced to rotate, they are going to have no early opportunities to pick up KPs whatsoever, and that could leave them at a pretty big lack for damage, potentially depending on how lucky or unlucky they've gotten with the loot pools. They could be sitting on like white or blue shields as well with no easy way to get them upgraded. So this could turn into a little bit of a negative for them if they're not able to properly leverage the position they have in the middle there.
Especially when you got teams like Fake Preds on the hunt for kills very, very early. The other teams understand the fact that, okay, positioning is good, but we've got to get that KP, and I think that we're even starting to see that with Parallel. We have left Cascade Falls, but there's just nobody around. They're hunting for people, but they're not finding the same success that Fake Preds is.
So yeah, they're there. They can take their pick of positioning, right? They have literally every choice to make at this point, except for a choice that throws them into a fight, which is probably something that they would realistically want at this point because they're not blind in this situation. They've read the scoreboard as well. They know how close some of these other teams are. They know they need to get aggro here. They need to look for kill opportunities if any are going to be presented to them, but they just realistically won't be able to find them given where they've chosen to start this game out at. And like I said, that could come back to help them towards the end of the game, but also has the really high possibility of hurting them in the short run here for at least the start.
Looking in, Fake Preds, while they do have control over their area, there's nobody really actually, but the closest team to the north, if we just look due north, is actually going to be Parallel. There is so much space between them, it's kind of insane. Meanwhile, it's going to be more to the east is where we're seeing the awkward situations as chickens are just trying to get away, and they're going to leapfrog up and over this one and should be able to make it into the zone. The problem is, What pathing are the... Nope, this is not the pathing you wanted to go with, because guess what? Fake Preds is right underneath of your feet when you make this landing. That's not going to go well.
We're going to see Chicken try to turn this one back around. Darth Chicken, to be specific here. Bringing out the damage. Unfortunately, he's the only one from his team that's able to realistically do so at this point. Down for the count. We'll switch over to the Fake Preds POV here to finish watching this one out. Just one player left up in the running at this point. And oh no, the punch out. Not the way you want to see it end, as the Chickens will go out in 14th place to end their final run.
And it's not done yet. Hey, let's go ahead and bring in a new set of contenders that hear the firefight and want to third party it. There's also going to be a team that could potentially fourth party this, and guess who that's going to be? Doja, finally now leaving Fish Farms, is on a similar pathing to this. So, while we do see a lot of jumping around that's going to be going on over here, Outsiders is finding themselves just getting punched and now has to move away from this, and it's not going to work. The only benefit is maybe Doja could come in and provide a distraction, but Outsiders can't even get that. Fake Preds is just feasting now.
Now here's the problem. Does Rao get the syringe off quickly enough? He's only got 1 to 2 ticks left. I think he's just going to sneak it. There we go. Now he needs to get... Does he only have syringes to try and heal himself back up? This is so rough for Fake Preds right now, as they're so low on mats. And yeah, as you're saying here, we got another squad potentially jumping into the fray as well. B&B, this might be from the distance. We'll catch up, of course, with our other team in just a second, as we are on board with another fight for a championship contending team at the moment here. B&B looking to pick up what would be, at least as far as Awope is concerned, the first KP pickups of this game for them, but they are being forced back. Good possibility that B&B get pushed out of the money here if they can't recover in this team fight.
Well, especially who they're going up against, because that is going to be Parallel that's holding down the position opposite of them. So this is a pivotal firefight, and they've got to make sure that they right it. B&B is managing to find some angles to work with. The issue is on Parallel's side, they are getting picked off, and while they got good position, they are going to go down very early, and that's going to cost them.
That's only going to be a single point in terms of placement for Parallel from this game. I do believe they managed to wipe out at least one squad, so expect around 2 to 3 KPs for them, but overall, a total of 4 to 5 points here when they were sitting just within about 3 to 4 points of their opponents. It is going to more than likely help to potentially maintain the status quo, but if the other 3 teams continue to excel, more than likely they will be bumped down to the bottom of that pile in 4th, if not 5th place, assuming another team does not go off inside of this game.
And the weird part about this is with the firefighting that we saw going on earlier with Rout and his team, them fighting around Gale Station, that's also kind of slowed down Doja and what they're trying to do. Doja, the early team firefighting squad, can't find anybody to firefight because they're all dead. So now, as the circle continues to move into the north, they're kind of on the hunt and seeing if they can find somebody that's going to be moving around them. But a lot of the big contenders are already starting to find safety. It might be Doja that gets jumped on from behind, of all things, if they're not careful.
Looks like Doja is drifting relatively close to a fight. Meanwhile, we've got another engagement going on. Iceberg just going down over in the distance there, but in reality, we've got Theater 3, I believe, as a part of this one. Managing to down out at least one of the opponents over there, but it looks like they were able to, for the most part, just kind of scare them away, get the one down, the one pickup, and aside from that, get their opponent to back up, just giving them the respect they needed to maintain control over the edge of this room, just on the inside of the wall. So going to continue to keep that alive if things go awry. Obviously, they've got the big jump pad to get themselves out of here. Meanwhile, on board with CCS, who are running into their own series of struggles at the moment. Joker just being knocked out there due to a shotgun play from Raptor. 2 other teammates still up and alive. We'll see if they can recover this one. Kill some zombies. Going to be trying to put down the fence work here, seeing if he can trip up his opponent. Certainly, he's tripped him up in the fence work, but now he needs to send out the damage, and he's just not finding enough of it. He goes down. Gunna, the only one left in the fray here now, and not even with his 2 other teammates. Curious as to where Gunna ended up at, but it's Axolotl to wipe them out here and pick up the 2 KPs along with it.
Gunna is in the command center, but not in a place that anybody is going to be trying to find them. As we look on opposite sides, we're going back over to the wall, as it looks like that's going to start seeing some more of the attention coming into play. And Theater 3 is going to find themselves with some friends as ADMP and the rest of the squad are coming in, and man, that was B&B just demolishing.
B&B definitely looking like the most promising run out of the 4 focused squads we have right now that are still trying to play for top 1 on their way to the top placement, of course, still with 3 assists or 3 KPs along with it. Things looking good for them, but you could very much probably say something similar about Doja, assuming that they were able to close out on at least 1 fight as well. B&B will have a safe harbor here. There is going to be a rat out to the eastern exit of this wall position that they're on the inside of right now. Meanwhile, closer down towards Cascade, or at least starting to approach it, actually closer towards Command Center, we do have the players on Doja as well, starting to group up and start to put themselves in position for their next move.
And I think that they're right on top of High Tribe, who's holding down the area. It's a very defendable position. You can see the fact that they're doing a good job on defending it up. And while Doja, yes, is an aggressive team, they're not going to walk into a kill box. And that is essentially what this is. So while this is going on, this is going to be right along the edge. But I don't know. Maybe they'll go into a kill box if they can get an easy knock like that one. They're just going to come in full on. That's already 2 down, and Doja is just going to come in and absolutely destroy High Tribe, as it's just going to be a KP race from here on out, it feels like.
That is only 3 KPs sitting on the horizon as well for Doja, so they're actually pretty even. It's them versus B&B as far as I'm concerned right now. We'll have to see who else from the top 4 is still in contention, but they're the 2 front runners at the moment, and they are right next to each other in terms of contributions for this game as well. It could very much come down to that final fight between those 2 teams if they end up being our last 2 squads. Of course, a lot can happen between now and then with still 6 other teams in play, but it's looking like it's going to become the focus on those 2 to potentially fight for the crown here.
I know we're in North America, but really we've got a civil war that's going on where it's B&B that's up in the north, and it's going to be Doja down in the south, and woe be to anything between them, as they are just absolutely just meticulously hunting down everybody that's going to be moving in any position around them. It's going to be Doja that's going to have to be coming into this one. Axolotl, who's managed to do a pretty good job so far, has got to be careful because Doja is the closest team sharing command center with them. So if they walk out on the wrong angle, they could reveal themselves. Actually, they're going to come up right back behind this, and they're going to open up the fight.
Axolotl gets the good engagement going, about half shield drain on one of those players. They'll send out the black hole as well for Raptor to really leap into this fight. Looks like it doesn't necessarily encapsulate too many players though, but they're getting good vision, just not good enough through the smoke, unfortunately, as they don't have those high-vis sights to be able to work towards it. He actually does on the shotgun. I'm getting a better look at it, but just couldn't find out the positions of those players through the smoke. So a little bit of misread there from Raptor. They're all right though, as they're able to get out of the situation, just cost them a little bit of a few mats, and it looks like for the most part Doja just choosing to bail out of this one. They lost too much HP on it initially, contending against that ultimate. They don't feel that this is a fight that they can extend themselves into, so they bail away from it.
They've just got the defensive line, and this is a good read coming out from Doja. They can hold out Axolotl from here because they've got the gatekeep position. Axolotl either has to force their way through this or wrap entirely around or find some other type of pathing, and that's very difficult here. So Axolotl now has to make a difficult choice. Do we push into a firm defended squad that now knows that we're here, or do we venture out into the ring and into the unknown where we have no idea what's going to happen? And the ring is the choice that they're going to make, but that just means the fact that there's going to be another team that they could potentially bump in, as you can see your boy 420 down there waiting for him.
We did just see on the kill feed as well, B&B picking up 2 more downs. I don't believe those players got finished off from what I could see on the kill feed at least, but still, assuming they do, that's going to be B&B potentially taking the lead on kills for the foreseeable future here, as they've now claimed a second squad compared to the only single one that has been picked up at this point by Doja. Doja, of course, though, as we're going to be moving deeper into this circle now, still very, very close, just about those 2 or so points behind them. So can very easily make up that difference, but it very much could become the make or break difference here as Axolotl continues to move forward. Not going to do much about that team that takes off in front of them. Not really much they can do to prevent that, unfortunately, without a sustained burn going on to the Valkyrie. But as we catch up with B&B, they are just about ready to leap into another fight, and it doesn't start that well. Snows absolutely melts ADMP to start it off, and that's going to be an immediate cancellation for both Dynasty and Awopi to get away from the scenario and hopefully get the revive off onto ADMP.
And while this is going on, there's going to be 2, if not 3 other teams that hear this firefight that's going to apply more pressure on the outside B&B. They're not charging in and they're not playing it aggressive just yet, but that means the fact that there's just going to be more harassment, forcing the hand of B&B, a team that likes to play much more methodical. That means 2 members now down. No. While they have been playing aggressive and they've been picking up the kills, it might come back to bite them. Wape now just trying to get away. There's nowhere to go, though, as he's going to come out, be faced up with another team directly in front of him, and it's going to be B&B that does go down in 8th place.
B&B out, Parallel out as well, more than likely out of the money, more than likely. B&B still with a chance they could sneak by it if things go awry, primarily for Doja, but Doja has been staying strong. Just need to pick up those 2 extra downs, and more than likely they will be able to ascend to first place, but we should still have potentially one other team fighting against B&B as well as Doja still to try and claim first place. We'll catch up with them as soon as we spot them here. It's just going to be the next to fall, however, as we see another cleanup going on here on the corner of the current active play circle. Lot of build-up, though, and a lot of rats on the way to the inside of the next circle, though, and it's Doja controlling that entire zone and playing point keeper to all of these rats and that single full squad that's going to try to rotate in.
But there is a 1-1 split that's coming out from Fake Preds. Route and Woko are still alive. It is going to be a chase right now as Route has been spotted. It's going to be 3 members that are going to be coming out after him from Doja, the harassment. This could be a big turning point. Route knows that he needs to get away. The sprays are coming. Is he going to be able to do it? Nope. He's going to go down. That's going to be a flush, and now it is just on to Woko. The issue is now Doja's going to have a lot of attention, as it's also going to be Axolotl fighting in the trenches right now. They've spotted out what's going to be going on. They've got to move forward. One of their members is going to be down, but with the smoke, the Neron lack of visibility, it's going to be a continued push right into the bullets, just seeing if they can find some angles to play from. But Afterdy is taking a ton of damage, has got to retreat and got to surrender his teammates.
Throws out the Rolling Thunder as well to hopefully open up a divide for him to pop off his shield battery. Will get it successfully, and thankfully didn't lose any real HP from that skirmish. So it is going to be long for the next fight here, as meanwhile back on board with Doja. Have already fended off that push you can see on the left side of the screen from Chief Louis. Can't position themselves directly into the next fight. However, as you can see here, Afterdy back onto him just to check in, make sure he wasn't followed. He's remained safe, got himself to the outskirts of this fight. Doja, I believe, picking up the 2 KPs from Axolotl's 2 down teammates as well. So that is going to leave them currently in the dominant position. Once more, Fake Preds trying to contend against them, still the chase for a top 1 position to finish things off, but it's looking more and more like Doja may be able to encapsulate it here over the next few minutes.
The only real competition that they're going to have to worry about is B1, but I mean, it's solos right now starting to pick each other off, and that's exactly what Doja does not want to have happen. They know that they need to pick up as many kills as possible. Circle is going to move away from them, and it's going to move back into B1, who I think have 2 up at this time, and actually also have just the touch of a compound that they can play from in this area. They've got the high ground to look down, and Doja now has to figure out how they're going to handle this, because let's not forget, Woko for Fake Preds is still alive as the solo.
B1 does, just to correct myself real quickly, actually have the full 3 players in the fight at the moment here. So they are going to be at full strength. Thought they were all stacked together. It looked like there was only 2 just on the mini-map.
They've got like 2 feet of circle that they have in control right now, so they're all standing over each other. That's not on us, guys.
The good news is, though, they have the circle control. They're going to lose it pretty quickly, though, as Doja continues to move forward, but a lot of chip damage going off onto Doja on the way forward. Woko, in the meanwhile, just casually sitting there on the left side of the screen, waiting for his chance to strike, but he may not ever get it. Vilux being melted there, forced to bail out from the encounter. Has the Rolling Thunder explosion that might actually take him down outright, but is able to thankfully get away from that. Vilux will go for the Phoenix kit. Looks like it's going to go off without a hitch as well. See a bit of a launch coming in there for the players on Doja to try to move themselves forward. B1 ready to defend against this, though. This is when the Caustic comes out to help. Immediately, they're going to turn tail. Snows unleashes the damage going back onto them. He's going to try to turn the damage up, but Luzoku is able to hold on regardless, even with the low HP. Knocks him down. B1 onto a single player. Sabroso gets his upgrade to a red shield, but it won't matter, as now once again it is going to be Doja taking over the kill leader position with 8 frags to account for, and as well the mop up on that last player to lock it in as Doja claim victory on the final game and more than likely have taken the first place finish on the overall tournament as well.
But they did it with placement points. They turned it around in the end and decided that they were going to finally win games as well, and that's going to carry them up into a phenomenal position inside of it. They didn't get their normal route. They didn't get to go hunt down all those people around Fish Farm, and instead that opened them up to be quite strong in the later stages of that game. But we did also still have a lot of teams that were inside of that top 4 hunt at least squeeze in and get some placement points, getting very late into that. Fake Preds being the second one out as a big factor for that.
So it's all going to depend, of course, on how the math turns out. Like we said, we have a lot of those teams in the top 4 within about 10 points or so of each other if you encapsulate them all. So we'll have to wait and see what the results end up being, which, of course, we'll have those in just a few moments. But again, to wrap up the game, everyone getting aggressive at the beginning of this one. We had so many fights right off the bat, and even past that, it just seemed like the action really never stopped here. As everybody was just trying to get as greedy as possible to pick up, in my opinion, as many KPs as possible here, just to try and go for that good placing. Teams outside of the top 10 were trying to push into the top 10 so they could qualify for the next round. It was really chaos in this game compared to the other 4 relatively well-composed ones we had before this.
But that's what you got to do, is you got to ride the chaos, and we saw that teams manage to make those quick on-the-fly decisions. That's how it's going to be benefit. Like, we saw that Doja was feasting down here in the southeast, so teams counter-moved around them, and that led to them having to play in a new style. Meanwhile, we saw B&B moving, getting center of control very, very quickly in a strong circle, and then just trying to hunt down what's going on around them, and kind of doing their own version of a mid-game Doja instead of an early-game Doja.
worked out so well for Doja here to control it, finally getting themselves a full win in the game as well, something that had been evading them for the majority of this tournament so far. But there it is, the stats coming in. June absolutely slaying it with over 1,800 damage from this matchup, 600 and 800 for Bixie as well as Luzoku specifically, and overall looking like they managed to get themselves just under 10 kills on the inside of this game. We'll get the final tally on this in a moment. We're going to take one final look, of course, at all 5 of our winners for today to give them the congratulations they deserve, and then we will see those results.
Parallel, Fake Preds, B1, CCS, and finally Doja. It has been take one passed around, no repeat victor, so number 1 is not going to be shown yet. I got baited. I see what you're going to do, production. Ape Next, I still love your name, but now the climb coming out of this one means the fact that She Collectors, while you did manage to find yourself some shiesty, sneaky plays, wasn't enough to get you on the left side. Now, not going to be baited. Who's going to be our number 1 spot? It's going to be Doja by a lot. B&B back behind them. Fake Preds, Parallel, and B1 to round it out.
So close, even just beyond that first place finish, but Doja absolutely asserting themselves. Keep in mind, too, just how high ahead they were on eliminations. The second highest team sitting at 40 for B&B, which was impressive in amongst itself. That's just under 10 kills per game. And then Doja absolutely smashing that record all the way up to just under 60. 17 kills ahead of the next best team. Absolutely destructive performance. They even came back in the placement points. Look, they're right up top here with our 1st through 6th place finishers, managing to even that out and obviously improve their performance there, as that was really the only black mark we had on Doja's performance up until these final few games. Forget that now, as they shut it all down here in our final matchup and easily take control of our 1st place finish for the day.
And I've just got to point out, Doja would be in 4th place if we only counted kill points. We didn't even count the placement points. That is absolutely nuts. A stellar performance from all of our teams. And yeah, I know we've been focused a lot on our top 4, but this is all about a growth stage. If you're a team that's on that other side of the leaderboard, worry not. It's a learning process to get there and be able to compete against such strong performers as we've seen in our top. And even then, CCS, Axolotl, Outsiders, High Tribe, Aim Assist, we saw what you guys were bringing into that, because look, Aim Assist is only got 2 members and managed to hold down 10th place position.
Absolutely the case. They're all coming from placements as well. No elims from Aim Assist over the entirety of this one. We always saw LSC Unknown there ratting it out towards like the top 10 though, so that's how they managed to sneak that in over the course of our 5 games. A lot of fun here today, I think, overall for the Apex Legends Master Circuit and PlayStation tournaments. What did you say?
Yeah, but we're not done yet. There's still more PlayStation stuff to go. We're done at Apex, but don't worry. If you've been enjoying this and you want to get involved, there's tons of other events that are going to be coming down this pipeline. Sure, you can see the fact that we're going to be moving into a lot of fighting games, but we got Mortal Kombat that's going to be coming up next. Rainbow Siege, which I feel, Blue, you know something about, is going to be following up after that one. Apex is going to get another bit of attention on October 21st. Dragon Ball Fighters is going to follow it up, as well as we can see Street Fighter and Fortnite at the end of the day. And how, oh how, Blue, do you find a way to compete inside of such glorious competitions? Where do you go?
Well, thankfully, you can see it at the top right of your screen right now, and in a moment, it's going to be on the bottom of my head. Over at compete.playstation.com is where you can find out all the information on how to get signed up, not only, of course, for our Apex series, but all the other series you just saw on your screen a few seconds ago. Go ahead, hop in, have some fun. There's lots of prizes to be handed out, and we accept players of all skill levels. So go ahead and check out, try your hand at the competition over at compete.playstation.com.
And with this, it's the end of the day, and we have finished 10 rounds across EU and North America. We thank you all for tuning in. Big shout out to everybody that's working on production at PlayStation for putting in a ton of work. There is so much back end that you have to do to make an event like this happen. And Blue, I'm so glad I finally got a cast with you, man.
Yeah, it was great working with you too, man. First time, like I said, we've known each other for quite a while, but we finally got to meet here on the battlefield of Apex. It was good getting to work with you.
Last but not least, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you in the next PlayStation event.
PlayStation